And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, February 13th. And the show went so well the last time we did it, we're running it back. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by DK underscore DFS. That's how you'll find him on Twitter. We're brought to you by Sleeper. 6-game slate ahead of us, or basically just one game if you really, really like the Miami Heat. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. I already gave you one of the handles. The other one should be pretty obvious. It's underneath my body, I believe, unless Jordan's not doing his job. DK, what's up?
What's up, man? Excited to do another show with you. Yeah, the slate's interesting. There's a lot of games with a little bit of blowout risk. Obviously, Miami looks good. We just got the Anthony Edwards news in the late game, so that'll be fun to talk about. But at least we do have a few other late games too. So yeah, I think things be a pretty good slate.
It should be. It should be. It's going to be, I don't know. I'm really dreading Milwaukee beating Miami by like 40.
That's what I'm really scared about too, is because like if the game stays competitive, you're going to see at least probably a couple guys from Miami make the winning lineup, but also like, ooh, that game could definitely blow out in Milwaukee.
Yeah. If that game is competitive, it is going to be next to impossible to not see two Miami dudes just based on what ownership is going to look like. So if it's not competitive, and then I hope you played Jamal Cain or one of those other idiots that are just randos at the end of Miami's bench.
If it's not competitive, I'm going to lose. I'm going to tell you that right
now. The last time that I ran it, I think, do I still have that tab open? I had like 65% of the lineups that I were playing had 3 Miami Heat dudes in it. And then like 34% had 2. So I had basically like a stray lineup somewhere that either had 1 or 0. It's really hard to avoid these dudes today.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to run a tight rotation. What was it? The other day on Sunday when Rozier was actually in, I played, well, that was a little bit different. There was only 2 games that day, but I played 5 Miami Heat. So
yeah, it might be a decent day to run that back again. But for now, we're going to lead it off with the Boston Celtics. They are 9-point favorites in Brooklyn, 227 total. It's really weird. First 3 games of the night early, 7:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock tips. They're all basically like 225 totals. Then you get to the late games with 2 in the 240s, and then that dreadful Minnesota-Portland game at 213 last I looked. For Boston, we got a Q tag on Kristaps Porzingis. No Tillman, no Springer. So nobody else matters. And then on the Brooklyn side, Cam Johnson is still out. We're seeing 20% ownership coming into Jason Tatum. I should probably grab our most recent runs from about an hour ago just in case it popped up, but I can't imagine it changed too much. Around 20% optimal, 20% owned in our boom bust tool. Single digit ownership across the board for everybody else. When you look at Boston, what stands out?
Yeah, so I think if Porzingis is in, I don't think there's anything that really stands out. Usually this is a team when they are basically fully healthy that it's tricky for me to get to on a slate like with a lot of games on it. And we have 6 games. So I think if Porzingis is in, I would be fine with any of the main guys. If Porzingis does not play, then I think Horford would stand out as a pretty good option. He should move in the starting lineup. He should play like low 30s minutes or so. If Porzingis sits again, you get a usage bump to Tatum and Brown. Tatum sitting like 33%, Brown at like 28%. So I think everyone looks a bit better if Porzingis is in play. Horford becomes a pretty good play in the mid-range. But yeah, if he's in, Porzingis is in, I think all the main guys are fine, but no priorities for me.
Yeah, I basically see it the exact same way that you do. I have 7% of Tatum right now, so I'm a bit under the field. And it's mostly just a factor of we've got a lot of different pay up options, from 9,500, which is Tatum. There's no one really close to him below him. Dame is $600 cheaper. There's just like a giant gap there. So Tatum, LeBron, Booker, Durant, Sabonis, AD, SGA, Giannis. You have plenty of places to get away from the guy that is currently in that range, pulling more ownership than anybody else. And I just find it easier to want to grab, take a little bit off of Tatum, double up on the 5% ownership of Devin Booker or something like that if you want to. Very easy to get over on Booker's ownership at a quarter of Jason Tatum's. I don't see these guys all that different today at the top end, at least in terms of, especially on a 6-gamer. But that said, I think Tatum is the dude that looks the best. If we lose Porzingis, do you have any interest in anybody that's not going to be a starter, assuming that it is Horford? Would you want any Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser?
Maybe a little bit Anderson Pritchard. I think in that scenario, we probably would see Cornette play the backup 5, right? He's usually that's what happens when Porzingis misses. Is you get Horford starting, then a little bit
Yeah.
of Cornette as the backup.
Yeah.
So I think he could be at least playable. Pritchard is cheap. I mean, he's 3.7K. Right now, the minutes have been hovering around like 15 to 17 recently. So I think with some of the other value on the slate right now, like Miami value just looks way better than
Yeah.
guys like Pritchard or Hauser. We could have really good value with Minnesota if Anthony Edwards doesn't play. So I don't think there's anything that I would really go out of my way to play for Boston off the bench. Maybe just like a little bit of interest in those guys that you mentioned.
I have nothing else to say. Like, if they're all in, White, Brown, Holiday, Porzingis, to me all look like the exact same play, just, different positions, different salaries. And then Tatum is like a half step ahead of them, but I don't really see much that I want to go crazy for on the Boston end.
Yeah, and I agree with your take too. I do think Tatum is going a little bit overowned right now. If he is in fact going to be 20%, assuming Porzingis plays, but
Right. Yeah, if not, then he deservedly gets a little bit of a bump and looks
definitely
better than those pay up options just because he's the cheapest of them and now has one of the main competitors for fantasy points just coming clean off the floor in place of Al Horford.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to talk about for Boston.
Okay, we'll bounce it over to the Brooklyn side then. Day'Ron Sharpe is back. I don't know how much that is going to really matter for this team at this point, but single-digit ownership across the board. Highest owned dude, 7% to Mikal Bridges. He's also 12% optimal in our boom bust tool, which is a pretty sizable positive leverage score. I've got 25% of Bridges right now. If this game stays competitive, I think he has a lot to do with it. I like the price. I certainly like the positionality. He's a fantasy point per minute guy pretty consistently. And I don't think it takes a massive day for him to look good just for the way that this slate looks. How do you feel about Bridges? Do you like anything else from Brooklyn?
Yeah, so Bridges, I do think he's a good contrarian play right now. He played, what was it, 33 and a half minutes in that last game and lost the last 5.5 because of a blowout. So on average, you're usually getting, high 30s minutes from Bridges. Again, not a ton of ownership going to him. They did run basically an 8-man rotation in the first half of the most recent game. Was a little bit surprised you did not see Lonnie Walker crack that rotation. He played a little bit there in the third quarter. But they played the starters, Cam Thomas, Claxton, Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, Ben Simmons, and then you saw Dennis Smith Jr., Schroeder, and Jalen Wilson play off the bench. Now, Jalen Wilson's been playing a lot recently. You had the 1 game 2 games ago where the Nets were extremely shorthanded, so don't put too much emphasis into that. We played like 40 minutes, but he did still play 30 minutes in their most recent game. I don't think we're going to, continue, or I don't think he's going to continue to play that much. And then also you do have Day'Ron Sharpe back, his first game back, I think in like a month. I don't think he's going to play huge minutes, if at all. I think he'll just play like backup Claxton a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I think Bridges kind of a good contrarian play. I think it's a bit trickier for me to get to Cam Thomas on this slate, especially when you have guys like Schroeder and Dennis Smith Jr. coming off the bench. Dennis Schroeder, I did want to mention at 4.8K, played 27 minutes. Now he did close in the blowout, which was a little weird, I guess. But they were relatively shorthanded. But he had a ton of potential assists. Like, what did he finish? He had 12 assists in 27 minutes. So I think Dennis Schroeder's a little bit interesting as a GPP play, especially because we're not going to get huge minutes for Ben Simmons. Like, he should hover around like low 20s. So I think Schroeder and then Mikal Bridges would probably be my 2 favorite plays in Brooklyn.
The Schroeder one's really interesting. I was surprised to see it when I looked through Popcorn Machine. Mm-hmm. He was essentially the direct backup to Ben Simmons.
Right.
Every time Ben Simmons checked out, Schroeder checked in. Like, they overlapped for 30 seconds or something at one point in time. But basically every time Simmons left the floor, they brought Schroeder back on, which was not the way that you normally see like those 2 guys moving just because of Simmons' size. So I'm curious if that's like a thing they're going to keep up, and if those 2 are limited. Like, I wonder how much they're trying to play them together, because it feels like they're not, or maybe that's just a function of the way that they're running Simmons rotations right now, where he's only starting the beginning of each quarter. But I did find that interesting. I don't know if there's anything actionable coming out of that yet.
Yeah, and then what's your thoughts on the minutes for Jalen Wilson? Because I know he played 30 minutes last time out. Like, do we think Lonnie Walker plays a little more of this game? Because he didn't play at all in the first half. So Wilson is like, I think they wanna keep him in their rotation, but I don't think he's gonna play anywhere close to what he's played the last couple of games.
I gave him 20 minutes. I certainly
Yeah.
don't have a great feel for that. We have him in for 19.7. Um, I'm just assuming they care, like they'd rather try to develop him a little bit more than Lonnie Walker is the only thing that
Right.
I could really get based on that last game. Um, at 3,700, like I wanted to be interested, but 0.68 fantasy points per minute over the past month. And I know that sounds kind of crazy for him because he really has only played these past 3 games, but none of that looked good. I have him, baseline around zero point 0.8 in my model. It would probably take, 22, 24, probably 22 minutes where I would start to see him show up in some things.
Mhm.
He's certainly live to play a bigger chunk. Like he probably has one of the bigger ranges of outcomes in terms of minutes of anybody on
Yeah.
this slate. If you're a believer in him going out there or even playing like 26 would be a pretty decent return for Jalen Williams yeah, I almost said Jalen Williams, Jalen Wilson in this spot. I like it's just so hard to want to give him those minutes unless he's on like in the starting lineup, which he's obviously not going to be.
Yeah, and like you said, he's not the best point per minute. You're gonna have high usage players playing alongside him, and we just have really good value, which we'll talk about in a bit. But like I do think it's possible that he could play like 26, 27, 28 minutes. And if he does at least he's like no ownership right now, then maybe a little bit of sprinkle of him in GPPs. Personally, I don't think I'm gonna get to him, but I did want to mention that because I think it's at least possible he could play more than what he's projected for across the industry.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be a 1% owned dude and people are going to take shots on one of like the random idiots from Miami that aren't going to get much ownership, whether that's Alondas Williams or Jamal Cain or Jovic or something like that today,
Mhm.
they're not all that dissimilar. And we just saw him play a ton of minutes. So that path is there. Kind of scares me. I almost feel like I need to give him like an extra minute or two and see if I can get him to show up a bit.
Yeah, I don't think that's the worst idea. You're not going to get to like Ben Simmons at all, are you? The price is dropping
No,
and the minutes have slowly been ticking up, but I just don't think like the minute ceiling is there yet for him.
neither do I. I
Yeah.
think he's pretty well locked into like, I'd be surprised if he played more than 24. Now, can he
Mhm.
get there in 24? Yeah, I mean, he's a really good per minute dude. As weird as it sounds, like even when he's out there, he still becomes like a solid per minute dude. But you give him 24 minutes at 1.1 fantasy points per minute. We're talking 26 and a half fantasy points. That's 4.5x his salary. Like that's just not going to get it done so far today. The price needs to come down a little bit more. There's going to come this converge. They might not even try to stretch him out. Like,
Yeah.
what incentive do they have at this point to care if he gets like? Obviously, they would like him if he's going to play well. They'd like him to play that many minutes, but it might not matter now.
Right. It really doesn't. Yeah. I don't think it matters a ton. Plus, like he's always injured. So I just assume like they're just going to be very cautious with them too. So yeah. There will be a time though, I agree, where like he's going to be in play. This price continues to drop and the minutes like slowly creep up.
Yeah. Any Claxton for you here? He's getting a little bit of love. 6,900, 4% owned, nothing crazy, but like one of the few dudes on Brooklyn where you're like, okay, he's going to play those minutes barring injury or aggressive foul trouble.
Yeah, like I think Claxton probably plays, I don't know, around 30 minutes or so. He lost the last, I think like 5 minutes there or 3 minutes, whatever it was, 5 minutes with a blowout. So a little bit interested in him, but opportunity cost, he's only center eligible, which makes it a little bit trickier to get him into your lineup.
Alrighty, I got nothing else for this one. So we've got one in the book. Schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. You guys know the drill. You got to hit that like button if you want to make sure you want to see NBA live before lock. You guys did a great job of it yesterday. We got up over 1,100 likes on yesterday's Deeper Dive live before lock stream. That is exciting to see. You guys think you could run that one down again? Challenge is out there. I don't think y'all can do it. I'm confident that you can't. So prove me wrong. Also, use our avatar. Go to stochastic.com/avatar, grab that logo, use it on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, or Yahoo. If you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month of whatever you want at Stochastic. excluding the all access pass, which is a little bit too much at that point. But it's going to be around a $200 value. You get the Sims. If you want NBA, you'll get the Sims tool, the contest generator, our projections, our ownership, our premium Discord, the lineup generator. You get every single thing you would want on the NBA side across the board for a month. The only thing you have to do is tweet your result at Stochastic HOF. We want to see that lineup. We want to see how you did. We want to see the contest that you're in. We want to show it off to everybody else. The only thing that we ask is that you tag us in that one, and then we can get you that month. So again, stochastic.com/avatar. OKC, 2.5 point favorites in Orlando. 223 total. I really want to watch this game. Two fun young teams. 11% ownership coming into Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a $10,300 point guard. Everybody else on OKC is either single-digit optimal and single-digit ownership. Let's start with Shai. How does he look to you as one of the pay-ups for today?
I think he's like reasonable, but I don't think I'm gonna go out of my way to play him. Obviously in competitive games, you're gonna get big minutes for him, usually like high 30s. I will say though, the matchup's not the best. Like Magic have been pretty solid defensively, so that is a small downgrade there. You do have some other games that are much higher totals. You got the Kings and Suns at 245, Lakers, Pistons at like 242.5. This game's sitting at 223. So I don't think the pace of play is going to be played. I don't think it's going to be played at a very fast pace. But yeah, I think Shai's fine. As far as the rest of Oklahoma City goes, there's not a ton that I love. This is a team that, especially when they're fully healthy, it's kind of hard to prioritize them, especially the bench guys. Dagnall, I think he's a good coach, but the rotation, it feels like he just goes with a hot hand on the bench, whether it be like Haston Wallace or Wiggins or Kenrich Williams or guys like that. The minutes on Giddey have not really been there when this team's fully healthy too. It's been disappointing, like low 20s. Chet and Jalen Williams, just like kind of indifferent on both of them. The minutes and usage have ticked up for Jalen Williams. So I think he would probably be the second guy that I would get to on the Thunder. But yeah, I think Shai, probably my favorite play in Oklahoma City, followed by Jalen Williams. And then not a ton else that I really like.
I didn't have much Shai earlier today, and now I'm up to 21%, 11% owned. So I'm getting a stand where I basically only had Giannis. That has dissipated a bit. Now I am getting to Shai, which I'm more than okay with. He's fantastic and fun to cheer for. After that, though, I don't have anything for OKC. I wouldn't mind having Jalen Williams. I certainly wouldn't mind having Chet. Like any one of the starters are okay, but this is an Orlando team that is 4th in defensive rating on the season, 23rd in pace. That's a pretty bad recipe for OKC. If they were at home, this might look a little bit better for them, but in this spot, it just kind of mutes everything for the Thunder. And like I don't have any like tricky dudes because Isaiah Joe live to play 23 minutes because the shot's going in? Yeah, he's 3,100. That's interesting. He's also probably going to play 16 minutes, and you can't really feel great about that. So there's not a lot you can really squeeze out of the Thunder.
Yeah, and like I said, like with these bench guys, even when this team is like missing a piece, like let's just say, I don't know, if like Giddey was out, it's still hard to get to these guys just because you see it all the time with the Thunder. Like if someone misses, they start like, one of these bench guys. And then we've seen it so many times where they don't start the second half. Like Dagnall just loves to troll with the rotation. So when you have a fully healthy team in a matchup like this, I just have a really hard time going out of my way to really get to any of the main guys outside of Shai.
The Orlando side of this one is a little bit different. We've got 32% ownership coming into Jonathan Isaac. We got around 20 to Franz Wagner, around 20 to Cole Anthony, 15 to Paolo, around 10 to Jalen Suggs, scattered amounts to Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz. I'm going to just throw it to you. What is the best thing that exists for Orlando today?
So for me, I'm probably looking to the two top guys in Paolo and Franz. 8.2K for Paolo, 7.1 for Franz. The potential assists have been up on those two, especially they've been doing more ball handling, Paolo and Franz. The guards, they've ticked down a bit. And then I think it's totally reasonable price points for both Paolo and Franz. In their most recent game too, they ran a pretty weird rotation where those two were the only starters that closed the game.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about this. Goga re-entered the rotation, didn't play until the fourth quarter, and then also closed in overtime. Do we
Uh-huh.
think Orlando goes back to like that three-headed center rotation that they were doing earlier?
I don't. I think this was mostly just, I mean, maybe they want to reward him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this was just like a technicality of they're down a little bit. They bring in everybody on this late fourth quarter rotation and they go on a hell of a run. They go on a 16-4 run. They go from getting beat to taking the lead. And I think they just wanted to ride that hot hand clean out because it seemed to be working. I can't imagine they're reintroducing him to the rotation. It would surprise me, certainly, because we got 26 real minutes out of Wendell Carter Jr. like through the third quarter. He was only
Right.
-7. It wasn't so bad heading into that point. Similar situation for like Cole Anthony getting the final 12, 17, I don't know, like 20 minutes of the game basically without leaving the floor. I think that's probably more just a function of the way that game was going than anything else.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't think it would affect like even if Goga's back, I'm not totally sure it's going to affect Wendell Carter Jr. I hope it doesn't because I have 15% of him and he's only 5% owned. He's a bit of a GPP play for me today. It wouldn't surprise me though. All bets are off. I mean, I don't know why they ever stopped playing him, so I was confused then.
Right. And then yeah, the Cole Anthony ownership scares me a little bit just because I feel like they're going to kind of ride the hot hand of those guards with Anthony, with Suggs, with Fultz. I mean, we've seen games where Fultz has played, high 20s minutes. That most recent game, he only played 17. So Cole Anthony playing 30 minutes, I would say, is definitely a bit of an outlier. So that ownership does scare me a little bit. But the thing with Cole Anthony is he's actually not bad point per minute, and he's really, really cheap. But yeah, like I could it's definitely in the range of outcomes tonight where Cole Anthony comes out and plays like 10 minutes. Like I think that's definitely possible.
Right now, I am over on every guy getting any real ownership on the Magic except
Okay.
for John Isaac. 3,400 power forward center, 32% owned. I'm just going to find value elsewhere. We have him with massive negative leverage, so I'm okay not getting there. I assume he's now going to play 22 minutes and nuke just to really annoy me, but I'm 2xing Paolo. I'm okay with that. I'm a little bit over. I'm close to 2xing Franz. That'll work. I am using the Cole Anthony value. I think it's just interesting that Cole Anthony is half the ownership of John Isaac. I don't see those guys as
Right.
all that different for today, at least on paper, not for double the ownership at the very least. But the guy that I'm getting to the most over the field is actually Jalen Suggs. And I'll be honest, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to be really excited about playing Jalen Suggs, but his role has been relatively secure of late. If you just look at like recent box scores, he's playing like high 20s minutes. I know he didn't come back in their most recent game, but reasonable price point there, 4.6K. And he does have the nice eligibility, shooting guard eligibility. So I think he's fine. And like I said, he's not like he's projected for a little over 10% ownership right now. So I
Yeah.
think that's a reasonable stand. Again, like it's not, you're not going to feel great about it, but I think that's a fine play, especially at that ownership.
Should we be looking at any of these other clowns, the Gary Harrises of the world? Is Fultz interesting in any way? Could he just get like regular-ish starter minutes and be an interesting play at 4,500 today?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you can have a little bit of interest in Fultz because I think if he plays well, like he could play like 27, 28 minutes. So he's also low owned. Don't mind that one. I don't think I can get to like Harris or Ingles. I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Isaac. I think he's a good value, but the ownership does feel a little bit high in him. He did play a little bit as and he can do this at times. They played him a little bit at the 5 last game. So it's possible that he does play a few minutes at the center position. And it's nice that he's got the
Yeah.
power forward eligibility. So it's much easier to get him into your lineups. But yeah, everyone else, like I don't think there's anything else that I could really get to here.
The only thing that's bumming me out, I'm happy now that I'm 2xing Shea. The only thing that I
Mhm.
hate is that I have so much Orlando and so little OKC on the opposite side. It would really bother me if I didn't have Shea either.
Yeah, but I don't think that's like that's awful to have a lot of Magic and only like Shea on the opposite side.
No, now that I have just Shea, I can tolerate it. When
Right.
I had this Magic earlier today and not Shea, and it was just like, well, if I'm going to have 3 Orlando Magic dudes in a lineup, I have a hard time believing that there's not at least one viable Thunder starter at that point. But
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Um, Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that really stands out. I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah, there's a lot to. I mean, right now, Orlando has 110%. Let me make sure that I have that refreshed. Yeah, 110% aggregate ownership. That is the second highest mark behind the Miami Heat, just a bit ahead of the Minnesota Timberwolves right now.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely a team that I think you're going to need some exposure to, the Magic. I don't think they're my favorite team to target, but they're
Okay.
one of the top teams for sure, especially on this slate as it stands right now.
I don't have anything else for the Magic.
Yeah, ready to move on.
All right, then we're going to go to the other team that is pulling just massive, massive ownership. That is the Miami Heat, 8.5 point dogs in Milwaukee, 222 total. We have no Jimmy Butler, no Jay Rich, no Terry Rozier, and Duncan Robinson is questionable for this one. And this is where the ownership is. If you thought that the Magic were owned heavily, the Miami Heat have double that. We've got 50% coming into Tyler Hero. 50% coming into Jaime Jaquez, 35 to Duncan Robinson, 25 to Kevin Love and Bam Adebayo, another 20 to Caleb Martin, and around 10 to Haywood Highsmith. Start wherever you would like here for this Miami Heat team.
Yeah, I mean, this is by far and away my favorite team to target. Also, the field's favorite team to target, but I think it's really hard to get away from this team. They ran a pretty tight rotation last game, and now you have no Rozier, no Jay Rich, and possibly no Duncan Robinson. I think starting lineup, assuming Duncan plays, is probably going to be what, Hero, Duncan, Jaquez, Martin, Bam, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then so I think you get what, Love off the bench, backing up Bam. You'll get Highsmith off the bench. And then
Yeah.
as far as the eighth guy goes, I think you see like eighth, ninth guys probably like what, Jovic, Kane a little bit. And then if Duncan gets ruled out, that's where things get even trickier, because then I think you
Yeah.
just get more minutes for those main guys. And then we would have to start considering, Jamal Kane and Nikola Jovic, I think, in that scenario.
I think if Duncan Robinson goes out, I think we're also going to start talking about Alondas Williams, flat 3K. The only other real guard that they're going to be going to, I think Kane is probably up first. But I think at that point we probably do see a little bit of Williams, probably in lieu of someone like Jovic, because at that point Jovic ends up being like pretty repetitive in comparison to the rest of the dudes that are here. It could also just mean that Alondas Williams plays 10 minutes because Tyler Hero plays 38 and they don't put those dudes alongside of each other at all. So I'm not all that as of right now, I'm not at all concerned. Not that they can't be good plays today with Jovic, with Kane, or with Williams. We have to see Duncan Robinson out for me to want to get to any one of those three dudes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I can get to them unless Duncan sits. But I mean, the main guys, I like them all. Bam,
Yeah.
Hero, Martin, Jaquez, Duncan, assuming he plays. I think Kevin Love's a good value. I don't see a way that you can get away from this team. Like I said, I think if the game stays competitive, you're going to see at least a couple of these guys make the winning lineup. Like Bam and Hero going to lead the way offensively. They're going to dominate the usage. I think Martin and Jaquez played big minutes. Jaquez is a bit disappointing, was disappointing as chalk last time out, but not super worried about it. I would just chalk that up as kind of an outlier performance. I think he's going to play, he's going to do some ball handling just because the team is so short on guards. So, and it's not like guys like Martin or Jaquez are that expensive either. 5K Martin, 4.5 Jaquez, Duncan's 4.2 as nice eligibility. Yeah, this is a team that I'm going heavy on. So if they get blown out, I will not be making money tonight.
So I've got 75% Hero. To me, he's like about as unavoidable as anything can get. The ceiling is massive, and you really don't even need a ceiling game out of him. If he goes if he has a 65th percentile outcome, that is probably enough to just be there, especially at 50% ownership. I'm neutral on Jaquez at 4,500 with an MPE. I just think he fits into anything. You don't even have to really project him well for him to look great. Duncan Robinson, if he's in at 4,200, shooting guard, small forward, probably starts, plays 30 minutes. Those three right out of the gate, I love. Then Caleb Martin, he is 5K. It's only power forward. I don't think it matters. He's just going to play massive minutes and has to be involved. The one guy I'm not actually getting to a ton of is Bam, which does scare me. Not that I don't think he's a great play, because obviously he is in this scenario, but at 25% ownership with the way center works, I just always find it really easy to zag a little bit at center if anybody's picking up a ton of ownership. I'm zagging to Kevin Love. I have 35% of him. I hate it so much. I don't like taking stands on guys that I think are relatively limited in minutes, but he's right there at 3,600, just being that value play. And in theory, could play a couple minutes alongside Bam. You get him up to like 22 minutes, and then you feel really good. I only gave him 18. Um, I'm getting to all these guys. Like I have double digit exposure to all these guys, 35 plus to Love, Hero, Jaquez, Robinson, and Martin. I have a bit of a little trickle of Haywood Highsmith sneaking in. These guys' prices are just way too easy to get to.
Yeah, they're easy to get to. I mean, you mentioned something I was going to bring up. I do think Love will play a little bit alongside Bam just because this team is very shorthanded. On the most recent slate, that was on Sunday, you did see Bam was pretty low. I think he only came in at like 15%, and Love was like 40%. So it'll be interesting to see if something like that happens again, where a lot of the field kind of flocks to Love. I do think it's easier to get to him, obviously, but I just really like the ceiling on Bam, and the ownership's not crazy on him. So I'm pretty high in him for tournaments. I do think it's interesting the ownership as well with Martin and Jaquez. Jaquez is like 3x the ownership of Caleb Martin right now. I don't think they're that different of plays. So
No.
factoring in ownership, I might slightly give the edge to Martin there. But yeah, the team in general looks really, really good.
Yeah, I like that Martin Jaquez shout. It's not stopping me from getting to Jaquez. Like I have 48, he's projected for 48, but it is doubling up my Caleb Martin. I do think that he is looking a little bit underrepresented for what I expect to get. I gave him an extra minute over top of what we have as well. I really hope Duncan Robinson plays, by the way. I don't want to deal with it.
I know.
Like it's not more, it doesn't make the slate better for us to like hypothesize Jamal Cain minutes.
No, I don't want to deal with it. And then I feel like, yeah, like I'll play Jamal Cain. It'll end up being Alondes Williams. Like I don't know. I don't want to deal with that headache. I agree with you. But yeah, it does also feel like Highsmith is a little.
Porzingis out.
Oh, he is out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
You think Highsmith's going a little bit underrepresented here?
I think so, because like I think you got to give him like mid-20s minutes. I mean, it's not an exciting play. He's not the best point per minute, but he does have nice eligibility. I know he's been, if you just look at like box scores recently, he hasn't done a ton, but like I think he's gonna play pretty good minutes here, and he's pretty unowned.
The only downside to Haywood Highsmith is just how bad he is. I got him as a 0.67 guy. He's at 0.56 DraftKings points per minute over the past 30 days. I got him around 0.6 for this game. That's still even, I gave him 26 minutes. That gets him to 5x his salary, which is crazy. He's another guy where like I certainly wouldn't mind. He's a very easy guy to go like double the field on, but not ruin your night. 16% of him at 8% ownership is not going to kill you in any way, and could very easily just soak up minutes where that you don't like. They don't have to go to addition like 36 minutes to Caleb Martin or something like that. I don't know if Jaquez is really live to play 32, 33, 34. If he's at any just like locked into around 30, that could bump up Highsmith. Maybe they don't even want to go to Jovic and they want to just play a very tight rotation, and Haywood Highsmith starts soaking up some of that time. He's probably the most like easy to get to but slept on dude from the Heat today.
Agree. Yeah, I think it's possible they could run an 8-man rotation. We've seen that recently for Miami when they're shorthanded, where they only play 8 guys. So it is possible.
Yeah, I don't think that would be nuts at all.
Yeah. And then, yeah, with Porzingis getting ruled out, I think kind of what we circle back to is just like Horford now becomes a pretty good play. Do you have any other takes on that?
Let me look at the pricing. Yeah, $5,200 Horford. If we're talking 30, I'm just going to say 30 minutes just to be quick about it. 27 fantasy points. I mean, he would look better than everybody on Boston looks for me right now with KP in. So right out of the gate, we're talking about another guy, especially with the power forward center eligibility, where we're probably getting to, I don't know, 10, 15% ownership on Horford, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, maybe even a little higher. I think he's gonna be a pretty easy guy to get to, especially at that price point. So yeah.
Let me see. I'm just gonna see if I could quickly switch minutes and get a projection on him without really moving too much stuff around. If I give Cornette 16, I'll lock 30 for Horford, although I think 31 or 32 is certainly reasonable. That Probably gives a little bit of a bump to Peyton Pritchard, a little bit of a bump to Sam Hauser, and then I'll hide the rest of these minutes on O'Shea Brissett, which actually might be a problem. Yeah, probably 15 to 20 on Horford now that I'm looking at it.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Ugh. I don't want to play Al Horford.
I don't really either, but I think he's my favorite player in Boston right now.
$3,300 Sam Hauser, if you start creeping his minutes up a little bit, becomes interesting because of that guard forward eligibility and all of that value that's on Miami that could be very easy to like pivot one of those randos.
I hate rostering Sam Hauser too, though.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's not a fun experience.
No, not so much. Do you have anything else you want to add for Miami? Circling back.
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
We go to the Milwaukee side. They're at full strength, other than Chris Middleton, who's been out for a couple games now. Giannis probable, Connaughton probable, Lillard probable, Brook Lopez probable. Single-digit ownership coming into Milwaukee. Another thing that really just makes me nervous if I'm going to have so much Miami on the opposite side. 6% owned Giannis. I've got 18. That makes me feel a little bit better, but I have a very minimal amount of the rest of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I think Giannis is probably my preferred option here, just because we do have a good amount of value, especially with Miami. But I think the price points make it pretty difficult to get to anyone else on this team, even with Middleton out. I mean, the price on Dame, 8.9K. I just think there's other guys in that range I'd rather get to. Portis is way too expensive with Lopez back. Beasley's price is up. I mean, Crowder's going to start and probably play, I don't know, around 30 minutes, but his price is ticked up. So you've seen a lot of the price points come up in Milwaukee with Middleton out. So yeah, I think outside of Giannis as a spend up, it's pretty hard for me to prioritize any of these guys.
Yeah. I just don't see. I mean, it's really three dudes for me. Lopez, Lillard, and Giannis are like the guys that I'd be cool with getting. And you see that coming out in our optimal rates and our ownership. I mean, Crowder, 3% optimal, 2% owned. Malik Beasley, 2% optimal, 1% owned. It's really just those three dudes, Lopez, Lillard, and Giannis. And even then, I'm relatively limited here. But part of me kind of just wants to get a little bit more Giannis, hope he's the one that does the damage, and then fill it out with whatever idiots from Miami just show up.
Yeah, and Giannis was on pace for a huge game. I didn't even he finished with 76 fantasy points last night, and I don't even think he played in the fourth quarter or barely played. The game was
30 and a half minutes, 36 points, 18 boards, 5 assists, 5 stocks. Meanwhile, Wemby with the 12 stocks yesterday.
Yeah, that was wild. Triple-double with blocks. That's insane. He had 5 assists too, I want to say. He came like
he did. Close, if you take 3 of those blocks away and turn them into steals, he's got 27, 14, 5, 5, and 7, which would be one of the more ridiculous games that have ever existed.
Yeah, a little bit tilting too, especially that I played Wembanyama. Like I feel like the last couple sites I didn't click on last night, so that was a little bit frustrating.
I didn't play last night's slate, so luckily I was able to dodge that one because I don't think that I would have had all that much. I don't have anything else to say here for Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, I think I'm ready to move on.
Alrighty, well then let us talk Sleeper. They are the sponsor of this show. You guys see the banner at the top of the screen, and you see the big old 500 on that banner. That's the part you want to pay attention to the most. You can get up to $500 matched on your first deposit. Whatever you put in, they're going to match it up to $500. So you put in 100, you get 100. You put in 200, you get 200. You can go all the way up to 500 and start off with a $1,000 bankroll at Sleeper. I know that sounds insane, but lock in that free money when you can. There's only so many deposit bonuses you could take advantage of, and really you should try to be casting as wide of a net as you can. Get yourself some money here, figure out where you want to play, and then deal with it later. You can 100x payout. That's the highest that I've seen on any of these pick'em sites because they have dynamic payouts. It's not just even action on both sides of whatever play you're looking at. You can get a multiplier of 1.5x or 2x and really start stacking those together to try to get to that 100x payout. Your minimum deposit is $20. So if you're signing up At the very least, you're putting in 20 and getting 20. I highly recommend doing whatever you can to get more money in at Sleeper just to take advantage of that deposit bonus. If you find out down the line after you've played through it that it's not really your cup of tea, that's totally fine. But you gave yourself access to more money right out of the gate. There should be a link in chat or a link in the description of this video. Go ahead, sign up at Sleeper. Use OddsShopper if you want. Sign up for OddsShopper as well. Get some extra plays for Sleeper. Early games done. On to the 10 o'clocks. Sacramento Kings, 5-point dogs in Phoenix, 245 total. This is the highest total of any team on today's slate. We've got 27% ownership coming into Malik Monk. And then we've got 20 to Keegan Murray, around 15 to Fox and Sabonis, then around 5 for Lyles, Herter, Harrison Barnes. Who stands out to you from the Sacramento Kings?
Yeah, so I think Sabonis looks pretty good at his current ownership, 10K. Like the spot from up-tempo game. So I think he looks pretty good. The ownership of Malik Monk does scare me a little bit.
Yeah.
But he is a guy that when the minutes are there, he's usually producing, right? The thing that I always mention with Sacramento is I put these guys into a group. So a group of Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Kevin Herter, Harrison Barnes. One of those guys is going to get their minutes slashed. Like we've seen it all year. Like for a while, like early in the year, it was Herter. For a stretch, it was Barnes. For a stretch, it was Murray. A couple weeks ago, it was Malik Monk playing limited minutes. So they kind of go with the hot hand here. That always does scare me when this team is fully healthy. But yeah, Monk, if you told me for sure that he was going to play like 26, 28 minutes, then yeah, I think he would probably be my favorite option in Sacramento. It's just that like if he struggles, we have seen them limit his minutes. Like there was a stretch of time in like late January where he was averaging like sub 20 minutes a game. And then as far as the rest of the wings go, like I think Murray would probably be the next guy that's the easiest to get to, 5.1K. I like the ceiling the most on him. Barnes and Herter, no real strong takes on either of them. I believe, is Lyles still questionable too? He is. So
yeah, he is.
I think that would make me feel a little bit better about their minutes if he gets ruled out. But yeah, I think Monk, Sabonis are probably my two preferred options. The ownership on De'Aaron Fox is not super high either. He's been a little up and down too, but the price is like it feels cheap on De'Aaron Fox. 8K for a guy that has like 50 plus fantasy point upside. So yeah, I think Sabonis and Monk the main guys, but then a little bit interested in Fox too for GPPs and Murray.
I think these guys are just getting like a hair too much ownership, and it's what's stopping me from really getting to them. The only guy that I'm over on is Keegan Murray right now at 5,100. Just have to hope he gets the minutes. I guess I hope that Trey Lyles doesn't play too. That would certainly help that a little bit. If Trey Lyles doesn't play, I think Keegan Murray is pretty well locked into 30 plus. But I'm under on Fox, who I usually get a lot of. I'm under on Sabonis, who I don't usually get a lot of, which is really weird to me. He's one of the more interesting dudes in DFS because there's nothing like I go through his projection every day. I make sure that they don't deviate too much from their starting lineup. Right. And I lock in my usage rate for Sabonis and I lock in my minutes and I go through everything. And no matter what happens now, my points projection on Domantas Sabonis is like 2.5 points over the prop market every single day. But then I look at my DFS overall projection and somehow I come in like a half point to a point below the entire industry on the overall projection for Sabonis. And I can't figure out how I'm already starting ahead of the game with his points prop, but somehow I lose it somewhere and I can't figure out where. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me when he's playing 37 minutes a night. So I'm light there, neutral on the Barnacle of the Bay, Harrison Barnes. I don't have any Lyles right now. I don't have any Herter right now. That's the part that I think scares me the most. This is the inverse, and you just sort of talked about it. This is the inverse of what we saw like 2 weeks ago when Monk was playing 19 minutes. Malik Monk is 27% owned and $700 more expensive than Herter. Now, obviously, he's a much better per minute dude. 27% to 3% ownership. On that day, like I just kind of feel like I want Kevin Herter and hope that it's not the day where Monk plays 28 minutes.
No, I think that's a great point because like Kevin Herter could very well go out there and play like 33, 34 minutes. We saw that for such a time when Monk was getting his minutes limited. Herter was playing a lot more. So I don't think I would play both those guys together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't hate that, especially at the ownership. Like, I think 3% or whatever it is for Kevin Huerter, I think that's too low for his chances of success. I think if he plays well, he could very easily play 30 plus minutes and no one wants to click him. And then you saw a couple weeks ago, he was like massive chalk and no one wanted Malik Monk. So yeah, I like that. I like that shout out a lot.
And I think our optimal rates make the most sense for the relationship between the two. Instead of having 27-3, it would be 20-6. And
Right.
that sort of distinction would make a lot more sense on paper. And that's why I think getting to a little bit of sneaky Kevin Huerter is there for you. It doesn't take like he's a hot first quarter away from playing 30 minutes today.
Definitely. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I don't think I can get to any of the bench guys for Sacramento. I know Davion Mitchell's been in the rotation, but
Yeah.
he's so bad point per minute. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, he's been playing 20 a night basically
Yeah.
for the past 3 games, sort of at the expense of Kevin Huerter for the past 2, certainly at the expense of Harrison Barnes for the past 3, 24, 21, and 21, which is eye-opening, I guess. I mean, as weird as it sounds, you wouldn't expect it, but Trey Lyles as a bench power forward has like a lot of swing value to the Sacramento Kings if he happens to be out. It really changes the scope of some of these other guys.
Yeah, like I think you're just gonna feel better about what you just said. Like I think Barnes plays more. I think Keegan Murray plays a little bit more. So that news actually, you might not think it's important, but it's actually pretty important, especially if you're targeting any of these wings.
Phoenix side is relatively underwhelming. Single digit optimal odds for everybody on the team. Only guy that got to double digits in ownership is currently Bradley Beal. He's 7,300 on DK. As I look at it, I got a little bit of Booker because he's only 5% owned. I got a little bit of Durant at 6%, but I don't see anybody that I'm taking a big stand on for Phoenix. These guys seem to be priced correctly.
Yeah, they seem to be priced correctly. And this is another team that when they are fully healthy, that it's usually hard for me to get to anyone. I think if I'm targeting anyone on the Suns, it probably would be any of the big three: Durant, Booker, Beal. Like this is a high total game, so if you get normal minutes for these guys, like you've been getting high 30s for Durant, Booker, Beal, one of these guys can have a pretty good game. But I think just in general, it's kind of tough to go out of my way to really click one of these guys. And then the bench pieces or like the secondary pieces are always guys that I get to if like one of Booker, Beal, Durant sit. So when this team's fully healthy, can't do it. Royce O'Neal in his first game played 11 minutes off the bench. I do think like the plan would probably be to want to play him more. But I don't know, like what's his price point at right now?
39.
39. So I don't know. I still don't think I can get to him yet, but I do think like the plan is they probably want to play Royce like 20 minutes a night or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably want him to like get every minute that Josh Okogie's playing right now and not have Josh Okogie out there would be my guess. And then he would just fit in that same sort of like Eric Gordon playing 23 minutes a night mold is what I think the long-term goal would be for Royce O'Neal, which if you get that right when it happens, like the day that it happens, you feel pretty good about it because at 3,900, he would be underpriced for that role. I don't know how long they're going to wait to really integrate him like that. And they might not integrate him like that at all. They might find out that it's just Royce O'Neal. But he's the guy that has like sort of the most upside for what you're getting out of him today, which is nothing. You're not looking at him at all unless you think that he can get those minutes, which is certainly on the table. That's why they acquired him.
Yeah, like he's kind of like we talked about with Jalen Wilson, right? Like we think like the minutes upside could be there, right? The range of outcomes. You could see like a 20-minute game from Royce. Even then, like I don't even know if I would get to him. But I did want to mention that I think the plan is they want to play more than they did in his first game with the Suns.
I agree. We can then go. I don't have anything else for Phoenix. I think there's just not a lot there. Minnesota's a bit of a problem. The whole team is 15% owned. Edwards, Conley, Monty Morris, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert. You're getting around 10 for Towns and slow-mo. Like everybody's got a little bit. The interesting piece of Minnesota now, Jaden McDaniels is questionable and Anthony Edwards questionable. Hard to dig into there's too many permutations if one or both of those guys are out for us to really dig in here. So like, let's assume everybody's in. What do you like from Minnesota?
If everyone's in, I don't think there's anyone that like really stands out. I mean, it's a great matchup. I think any of the main guys, Gobert, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, all look solid. Monte Morris in his first game played decent minutes on the bench. I think he closed in a blowout. He's the flat min price, so would have some interest in him. I mean, I think these these like secondary pieces are, cheap where you can consider these guys. Naz Reid, good
Yeah.
point per minute. If he finds his way into more minutes, he could smash. Slow-mo, NAW. Like, I think basically my take is like, if everyone's in, I have interest in like all the rotation players, but I don't know
Yeah.
if there would be someone that would like stand out more than the rest. If one or both of McDaniels and Anthony Edwards sit, then that's where things completely change for me.
Yeah, like if you lose Ant, we start really cranking up everybody. Walker down to 3,300 now after he was sitting in that like 4,200 range for a while.
Mhm.
3,300, when you start giving him those 28 minutes, it becomes an issue. I think they'd probably be willing to play Monty Morris and Mike Conley alongside of each other for a couple minutes at that point too. But we create a lot of value then. If they're both out, then buckle up. You're getting to a ton of Minnesota when you start swapping because this matchup against Portland's going to be fantastic. But if they're all
Yeah.
in, I think they're all kind of like the same guy, and that's why you're seeing these, five guys at 15% ownership like that. Yeah, like you pick and choose one or two of them, and that all looks okay. But I don't really have a preference between all of them.
Yeah, I will say I do think McDaniels plays. They've had him on the injury report with that finger sprain, and he's played like the last couple of games. So I do think he plays, but I think Ant is more 50-50. Plus, like back to back, if you were gonna like give Ant a rest day, I feel like playing against the Blazers would be the day to give him the rest day, right?
Yeah.
So um yeah, things will get I think Minnesota would definitely be my second favorite team if you get at least one of those guys sitting behind Miami.
For right now, I have 23% of Naz Reid. It's the most I have of anybody. I have 15% of Edwards, but I have three, four, five, six of the Minnesota Timberwolves in at least one of my lineups.
Yeah, I like the Naz Reid. I always like getting overweight to him just because he's just a guy. If he finds his way into a few more minutes, he played 27 minutes. He played a little bit. He didn't play the full blowout, but he did play like a couple minutes when the game was out of hand in the fourth. So cheap price point, great matchup. Yeah, like that call out, like that play a lot.
What I don't like is the Portland Trailblazers for countless reasons. No Malcolm Brogdon, no Moses Brown, no Shaden Sharp, no Robert Williams. But we do have a Q tag on Scoot, which at least has a little bit of intrigue. Although 5% ownership to Matisse Thybulle is the highest owned guy from Portland. He's also slightly positively leveraged. I basically don't have Portland.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to get to them. The one thing I will say about Portland is, they get blown out a ton, but in competitive games, they have been giving their starters big minutes. Like in their most recent game, Jeremy Grant played 41 minutes. He saw 37 minutes for DeAndre Ayton. So like if the game does stay competitive, I do think that, guys like Simons and Grant and Ayton are at least a little bit interesting, but yeah, I have outside of the main guys, I just don't think I can get to anyone else.
Yeah, I have very little to like. If you ignore the 9% optimal rate on Matisse Thybulle, the highest optimal dude that we have right now is 3% to Anthony Simons. And they're taking on the number one defense in basketball. Very difficult to talk about Portland today. Oh, by the way, they have a 102 implied total, which is far and away the worst for today's slate.
Yeah, awful matchup. Slow to yeah, it's just you have a lot of not a lot of good things to say about Portland, really.
We're going to close this bad boy out with the 10:30 start. Detroit Pistons, 10-point dogs in LA, taking on the Lakers. Before we do, 2,800 people in here, 460 likes. I knew we were going to cruise well over 500, but I think like 600 or 700 is in striking distance. If you haven't hit it yet, make sure you hit that thumbs up. If you want to watch NBA Live Before Lock on this stream after this show, you got to hit the thumbs up to unlock it. For the Pistons, 20% ownership to Cade, 20% ownership to Jaden Ivey, 20% ownership to Jalen Duren, very minimal to everybody else. How do you feel about the Pistons mid three?
Yeah, so the Pistons mid three, I actually think if the game's just competitive, they look good. I think that's the only concern is this game could get out of hand as they're playing, on the road in LA. Yeah. But all three of those guys played 35 plus minutes in their most recent game. So yeah, I think Cade, Duren, Ivy all look pretty good. I think that it's would probably be the easiest to get to Ivy. He's got the shooting guard eligibility. He's also the cheapest of the group, but any of those main three, I am totally fine getting to. And then as far as the rest of Detroit goes, I do think Asur Thompson's a bit interesting there, 4.9. He is foul prone, but he should see high 20s minutes. Fontecchio, Did close in their most recent game. He played 30 plus minutes as well. The only downside of Fontecchio is he's really not great point per minute. So you do need the minutes to be there. But yeah, the mid three, as you would say, I think look pretty good. And then some interest in Asur Thompson and Fontecchio. I don't think I can get to anyone else for the Pistons. Muscala's been starting, but like what? He only played like 10 minutes last game, so I can't do that. And he's only center eligible.
I have 38% Ivy, so I was happy to hear you lead with him. That $6,700 price tag. He's one of my bigger stands for today in terms of just dudes I'm getting over the field on. I'm pretty neutral to Duren. I've got 24. And then for Cade, I'm right around that 18% mark. I have scattered amounts of Asar Thompson, Troy Brown, which makes me sick, and one share of Fontecchio, who I really did not enjoy the trade for him for the Pistons, but that has nothing to do with DFS. And I think that he's going to play a bunch of minutes and be at least mildly viable and could start for the Pistons today. Like I don't think that Muscala at the forward is like long for that role.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's definitely possible because they don't want to give Muscala big minutes. There's really no point. And yeah, as a lifelong Pistons fan, I mean, you brought it up. They've been making awful moves forever now. So I'm used to the disappointment.
It's just a shame because like I really liked Cade coming out. You know, Duren's been interesting to see so far. Like I do think that, you know, he's certainly a dynamic young center. Ivy is at the very least an interesting ball handler that they had no interest in playing. Asar Thompson, you know, jury's out, but not a complete zero. I mean, offensively a complete zero, but you know, young. But anytime they do anything else, I usually assume that they screwed it up, and that's probably why they're where they are.
That's a fair guess. I think every move in the last like 5 years has been not good. So
yeah, shout out Marvin Bagley.
Marvin Bagley drafting a Halliburton drafting Killian Hayes over Halliburton. Like I'll never let them live that one down.
No, it's rough. Yeah. It's rough. 17% ownership coming into AD, around 13 to LeBron, around 10 for D'Angelo Russell, minimal to everybody else. Who stands out most to you from the Lakers today?
Yeah, so for the Lakers, I mean, they always list Anthony Davis, LeBron as questionable. So you never know when they're actually questionable. I assume they're both going to play in this game. The Lakers have been running a very tight rotation recently, like basically 8-man rotation over the last couple games. You've seen like a few minutes for Christian Wood. But with Dinwiddie there, I think that does make the value plays a little riskier to get to. If Dinwiddie was not available, then I would be having some interest for sure in guys like Rui and Taurean Prince. They've been giving big minutes to D'Lo and Reeves. But I think I think the main guys for me would be the top two, Anthony Davis and LeBron. How many minutes do you think Dinwiddie plays in his Lakers debut?
I gave him 20. We gave him 23 and a half. Somewhere in that 20 to 24 range is my guess.
Yeah.
In theory, could be, you know, upwards of 28 if they really wanted to. He can eat, like, it's not like hasn't been playing that style of minutes. So like that jump up wouldn't be crazy for him. It'd just be where he's been. So upwards of 28 for sure. He will be not involved from an off. Like I don't think he'd be pulling a lot of usage if he's doing that. So we would need to know it first. I think it's hard to give him too much more. Like we have him 2% optimal. That sounds about right at 23 and a half. The only guy that I'm getting to in double digits right now is LeBron. Having trouble getting all the way up to AD, but I do have a little bit of him. Russell, I'm neutral. By the way, we got Duncan Robinson available to play. Good.
Thank God.
Yeah, I didn't want to deal with it. I really, really didn't. I don't have much else to say for the Lakers though. Like there's only a couple guys, dudes that are as obvious as it gets. I'm not going to Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Taurean Prince now way more limited. Rui's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Rui has played big minutes, but like I think those got to tick down now with Dinwiddie, like 38, 37 over the last couple games. If you give Rui like, I don't know, like 30 minutes or so, he's still going to be like a decent contrarian play, but yeah, nothing that I love really with him.
Anything else you want to add for this slate? We've got 6 games up, 6 games down, live before lock coming up next.
Yeah, I'll just say that the Minnesota one is the big one, right? The news that we're still waiting for with Anthony Edwards and McDaniels. The good thing is we do have 2 other late games, so you can leave that flexibility, get some guys in those late games, and then if you do get news that like one or both Ant and McDaniel sit, you can move some stuff around. You can get those Minnesota guys in. So that is a big positive for the slate is you will have that flexibility, and I would recommend doing something like that because you could have a lot of really good plays from Minnesota if things break your way.
There you go, everybody. Follow me at Josh Engleman. Follow DK at DK __ DFS. Follow us both on Twitter. It's a great time. I promise you guys. Shout out to Sleeper. Shout out to Jordan. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Hit that like button, by the way.
We're back. Another edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame with a Millie Maker win this week. And all you got to do to get involved, get up here, inducted into the Hall of Fame yourself, and get a free month of any Stochastic package of your choosing up to $200 value is download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, doesn't matter how much you win or how much it was to enter. You are locked into the Hall of Fame, locked into a $200 package over at Stochastic.com. And let's kick it off with a big one. It's our own Steve Buzzard. The Sims were on fire this week. Thankfully, Purdy decided not to run back any further on that final play. This is fitting, given that Steve Buzzard was integral in creating the Sims tool that we have and he used to win a millie. Also, one of the craziest ways to win a millie on a negative 3-yard kneel down for Brock Purdy at the end of that game. Steve winning by 0.1 in the millie. And next up, another big one. We've got JK. Thanks for the content. If only Clay would have hit one more 3 before fouling out, we could have had all the glory. Still, $20,000 win, second place for Skull Crusher. Ain't bad. Brett Shoup, another Hall of Fame jacket. Shout out to all the guys on the strategy show, Deeper Dive, and Live Before Locks. Sim City, baby. $5,000, second place for Brett. And Germ, just a simple at Stochastic HOF, $20,000 in the fadeaway, followed by Adam. Been a huge fan of Stochastic, recently got the Sims package, took down the 60K 4-point play last night with the tool. Stochastic, best in the business. Thanks, man. Congratulations. And Namdi, back on fire, second place in the 7.5K mini max. Shout out to Namdi. We've seen him a few times recently. John Good, been a Stochastic member for a long time, finally decided to try the Sims tool, and this happened on the first night using it. Best in the biz, fellas. Fantastic addition to the community. Second place with the avatar. Lil Soupy, first place with the avatar as well. Makes it feel good. Thanks to Stochastic. Your pre-lock streams are incredible. From Julian, $500, second place. Rocking the avatar himself. And Mr. Tachyon? Yeah, Jordan, is that right? All right. $1,500. Forgot to post this earlier, but thank you for your NBA DFS tool. Congrats, man. Followed by Taryn at Stochastic Hall of Fame, $750, first place in the 15K fadeaway. Andrew, first week with the Sims package, and it's already paid for itself. Yep, they got night slates too. Yes, we do. $600, second place in the end one. And Humble Soul, $230, chopping third there. Oh, look at that. First place, $3,500. Another Stochastic avatar. Matt, big night the other night. Shout out to the great content. $1,500 for Matt as well. And then you've got Crypto Colazzo, $150 and $250 in the hot shot and the high five. Johnny B decided to tail Eric on the Hardman play. Really paid off. Want to give the NBA Sims Max package a go. You got it, brother. Thanks, guys. And Alex took down the piggy bank on FanDuel. Couldn't do it without the best tools and expert analysis. And finally, Jenny, very in-depth analysis, $125 in the 1-800-Flowers series over there on DraftKings. Shout out to all you guys. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted. Welcome back. If you've been here before, go grab those free months. Email us at support@stochastic.com and get playing on the Sims, lineup generator, whatever it may be. And if you're not rocking the avatar yet, stochastic.com/avatar.
That's an aggressive countdown. That's very scary. All right, what is going on, guys? Jordan really scaring the shit out of me there. For some reason, he's doing the countdown with his bottom of his teeth clenched as if he's doing some sort of dirty act over there. But Jordan, thank you very much for the countdown. It's been a second since we've had the group here together, all three of us, myself, Eric Lindquist, Jordan Klein producing. So if you guys could do us a favor as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also check out Sleeper. They're sponsoring the show today, and they've got a great deal going on. Jordan, throw that graphic up on screen that I told you about right before the show started, because if you guys sign up at Sleeper using the link that we have below, you're getting a deposit bonus up to $500 and access to this free square. Over under 0.5 points. 0.5 points for LeBron James. All he has to do is score a single bucket. I know his list is questionable in the injury report, but I'm going to call that bullshit. I think LeBron plays today, and I think it's over 0.5 points. Now, obviously, if he ends up sitting today, then this is going to get voided. It's not like it's a loss or anything like that. But LeBron James, over 0.5 points. Take advantage of that free square and sign up at Sleeper using the link that we have below. Eric, what's happening, man?
Doing well. Didn't get completely bulldozed yesterday like I had gotten bulldozed at the tail end of last week. That was good. But I had a good time chatting with Matt. Matt did a great job breaking down yesterday's slate. But I think this 6-gamer is very intriguing. Obviously, the Anthony Edwards popping up as questionable is something that we'll talk through. If there's anything we can really do about that, obviously McDaniels is sitting there too. But I think this is obviously a very intriguing slate, considering the slowest team in the NBA gets a matchup against the fastest team in the NBA with a bunch of dudes out. And there is some risk, I think, involved with Bam and Tyler Hero. They're phenomenal plays, but man, is it going to be a scary little slate. So a great tournament slate to be involved in.
And for the people in chat, and also a shout out to some of the guys in the YouTube chat who are always supporting the channel, like Chris Williams gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. We got Jorge Giacomi left a super chat. He said 1K likes on the video. He's going to drop a massive amount of free subs. And he says, let's go. Ooh. So guys, go listen to Jorge, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. But also people in the chat are bringing up that I might have gone a little bit hard on Punxsutawney Phil today. I did not go hard enough. Punxsutawney Phil is an absolute bitch. I have switched my ire.
What?
I no longer
groundhog, dude. Chill.
Do you know? Okay, so first off, this absolute piece of shit said it was going to be an early spring this year. Not in fucking New Jersey, was it? 9 inches of snow here today.
What are you talking about? Where is this coming from?
The fact that it snowed a lot today, and I was told it was supposed to be spring soon, so I'm kind of pissed off. And are you just
referencing your own X, your own Twitter, without any context whatsoever? Now I have to go through the process of looking it up.
People in chat were saying, why am I going hard on Punxsutawney Phil? And I'm trying to explain why he's an absolute piece of shit and why I'm going to be suing him as well. Class action lawsuit, you guys could all get in on it, because some of us are trying to plan our springs based on whether this guy sees his shadow or not. That's what all of us based our spring plans along. And what ends up happening, it snows 9 inches here. It's absolute bullshit. I've been watching this documentary called Caddyshack, and it's a really good kind of way about the best ways to exterminate groundhogs. There's this guy, Hero, Carl Spackler, in the video, and he really shows you the best ways to just get rid of these pieces of garbage groundhogs. And I'm taking action against you, Phil. And if you pull any of this nonsense again, where you say it's going to be an early spring, and then just shortly afterwards, it snows 9 inches in New Jersey, you're going to hear from my lawyers. You're not going to feel great about it. I hope there's a mudslide and your home fills up with water and dirt, and then you drown and suffocate. Phil, go fuck yourself.
Hey, Greg.
And a guy blocked me on Twitter because he didn't like my Punxsutawney Phil takes, by the way.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
I'll shovel your driveway for $15.
Don't have to. I paid the sun to make it warmer today, and the snow started melting. So we are all good. It's already doing its own job out there. And let's go ahead and start talking about the NBA slate. I could talk about this piece of garbage Phil for the entire. Jordan's got him on screen right now, and it's already tilting me because that is my nemesis right there. And I just don't like that guy very much. NBA slate today, Eric. We've got, as you mentioned, the Miami Heat situation is really where I think we should start, because we've got Jimmy Butler out, and not even my nemesis anymore. That is Phil from now on. But we've got Jimmy Butler is out for today. Terry Rozier is out for an extended period of time. He's had a terrible start to his Miami Heat career. And now we've got this team on a small 6-game slate that's just picking up an immense amount of value. This is where all the ownership is going. This is the chalk on the slate. How are you going to be handling the Miami Heat tonight?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is obviously a Bucks team that brings pace. They're fourth in the NBA in it, 116.3 adjusted defensive rating, so back of the pack in terms of defense. They also allow the fewest amount of seconds per defensive possession, so they're allowing offenses to just chuck on them. And considering the Heat are kind of the inverse of everything that I just said, everybody's salary is almost nuked even a little bit more because this is a good matchup. Like, if this doesn't turn into a 15, 20-point blowout, you're going to get a lot of consolidated minutes for a lot of guys who could absolutely go out and smash. And obviously getting the news that Duncan Robinson's going to be in, his multi-positional eligibility, having the shooting guard small forward 4,200 makes the most sense to be firing up. I think it makes complete sense also if Tyler Hero is somebody who ends up in a large portfolio of your lineups. You can put him in 4 different spots as well in DraftKings lineups, point guard, shooting guard, sub 7K, and just a slightly lower usage with Jimmy Butler off the floor than that of Bam Adebayo. Where I start to get uncomfortable is talking about these centers. Bam Adebayo and Kevin Love. You're only going to play 2 centers on DraftKings, maximum of, or 1 in a lot of those types of lineups. And Kevin Love's 3,600, but if they're going to share the floor together at some point in time here, like if they're going to be sharing the floor throughout this game at any point, that is just, it has been crippling. Kevin Love's had around a 13% usage sharing the floor with Bam Adebayo this season. And it just gets really uncomfortable having lineups in the Sims show up with Bam and Kevin Love in them. And so I'm trying to have some kind of a stand considering each of them are in a quarter of lineups with the field here right now. But I'm having a tough time not wanting to just jam Kevin Love. And I think that's going to be what inevitably the field ends up doing too, because he's $3,600 and he's going to play 18 minutes, I think, regardless of if this is a blowout or not. I don't think it's going to change his outlook for this game, whereas Bam, there's a very noticeable downside to the minutes. So for me right now, in terms of priorities, I love Duncan Robinson because of the MPE. I love Tyler Hero. I'm a little bit surprised to see Jaime Jaquez pulling as much ownership now at 4,500, but we all assume he starts, I think, as well. Caleb Martin probably starts too. They're cheap. They make sense. But the Bam Kevin Love thing is the main thing I'm trying to figure out between now and lock.
Yeah, so I can tell you how I'm handling the Miami Heat situation right now. And first, are you expecting Kevin? I know you had said that they both only have center eligibility and that you don't think that, well, you're kind of indicating that there's some negative correlation there. Do you think Kevin Love starts? You just assume he comes off the bench and plays backup center minutes?
Assume he comes off the bench, but it doesn't even have to be true center minutes. What I'm worried about is that like 6 of the 18 minutes Kevin Love is out there, he shares it with Bam and he puts up 17 and you just want none of him at 3,600 and he could end up being mega chalk. Like right now we've got them both projected at a quarter, but like I can tell you, we've done this long enough. We played NBA DFS long enough. When you get a piece of sub 4K value that could potentially play 18 minutes here in this spot, and then he's a phenomenal fantasy point per minute producer when he's on the floor, they end up more popular than you think they are going to be. The Sims tool has also done that, whether it was Isaiah Jackson the other day. Like we've had some of these spots where it's a backup center and they just walk into a ton of positive leverage or not necessarily positive leverage, tons of opportunity where things do break in their favor. You're set. Kevin Love also, I doubt, plays blowout run because, he's 100. He's older than me. So there's that. But Kevin Love is only 3,600 as a 1.23 fantasy point per minute guy. But again, if he shares the floor with Bam, that goes down to around 0.8. And that's over like almost a year sample size now. So like, I'm very, very uncomfortable with it.
I am overweight to the field on Bam. I'm slightly underweight to the field on Kevin Love right now. And I'm actually not even all that concerned about a blowout. It's really just more so that I think that Kevin Love's minutes upside is kind of capped a little bit. So he's fine. Like I have him in 21% of my lineups right now. That's not some sort of massive underweight to the field stand, but he's not somebody who I'm just jamming into lineups or anything like that. Whereas Bam is in about half my lineups right now. So my preference amongst the bigs for Miami, it is Bam. Now, how my mind could potentially change is if we end up seeing the Heat starting lineup and Kevin Love is in the starting, a totally different scenario if that's the case. It's just not what I'm expecting. I think we're going to see a more traditional starting lineup from the Heat. So I'm thinking Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Caleb Martin, Bam Adebayo. That's my expectation for the starting 5. And then I don't think we see, any sort of crazy minutes from Kevin Love. Cash games, go ahead and play them. Tournaments, cool. I'm getting to some of them, just not going crazy with my Kevin Love exposure. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the value plays that we like for the slate here. But Is there any kind of injury news that you're really looking at that you think could potentially massively alter your lineups, or anything that you're really reserving lineup spots for? Because there are some players who are questionable in the 10 p.m. games.
Yeah, so the very obvious one is Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards is 8,500, and I'd want to place him, Anthony Edwards. If I know it's a 213, it opened at 215, it's down to 212.5 for a total. And I mean, this is just a disturbing, disgusting spot. But there is an opportunity for usage to go to everybody. Anthony Edwards leads this team with a pretty hefty 31.3% usage rate. And those shots kind of sputter to everybody. I think Naz Reid becomes somebody that's interesting, where they've shown a propensity to just have him, intermixed with Gobert, with Cat. Kyle Anderson at 3,400 probably becomes a smash if you can get to as much of him as possible at 3,400. But like, considering how good the Heat value is and they're in that mid-range, I don't know really how to plan out what I'd want to do. And again, I know that it's only a 212 total, 213 total, and that's a ton of usage to pan out. But with Monty Morris there now, I'm not sure if they could just go directly to like having him and Conley sharing the floor, considering they're both kind of hefty ball handlers. But Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 3,300, 3,400. Basically, I don't see many scenarios where I'd want both of them in lineups if Anthony Edwards out. I just kind of want the guy who starts. So I think it's just making sure you get to a little bit of one of them. And I'm just kind of making that Kyle Anderson so that I can then turn it into Nickeil Alexander-Walker if he starts.
Yeah, one thing that is nice about how the games are spread out is that it's a 6-game slate, but we've got 3 early games, 3 late games. What would really be a pain in the ass is if Anthony Edwards is questionable, it was like an island late game. But there are already players who I'm just getting myself exposure to naturally without really having to aggressively change anything in the sim. So players like Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Keegan Murray, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert. Like, I'm getting exposure to players from the late games as is, to where I think I'm going to have flexibility to be able to alter some of my lineups in the event that Anthony Edwards gets ruled out. It's not something I'm willing to forego Heat players from.
Correct. Same.
Anything else you want to add about Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves? We do Scoot Henderson questionable the other side of the game as well. That could be a little bit of an impact, but there's nothing real crazy I'm doing. I did slight positive ROI boost to some of the players I like in the 10 p.m. games. Nothing crazy, just like 5 to 10% boost that I'd get a little bit more backloaded lineups, but it's not like I've gone ahead and said like, oh, I need to do like a 50% ROI boost on Karl Anthony Towns. Nothing along those lines. No. But Scoot Henderson or anything else you want to add information on?
Not really. I mean, I think getting to some of the Sacramento pieces as well. I mean, obviously we want to get to Minnesota in the 3,400, but like get some different price points. Like you can get Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, get some different positionality. You should be able to mix and match. But again, for me, if I knew Ant was out right now, what changes? Like, what does that ownership look like? What are the starters? Like we would assume Nickeil Alexander-Walker starts. And then we would assume Kyle Anderson would be kind of a guy that goes from like 19 minutes to 23, 24 minutes. And he's the better fantasy producer between the two of them. So, I mean, for me, it's more of like, I feel like I'd be thinned out trying to like force them in anyway. So I'm just going to get to like a 5-10% allotment of them and let that ride. I can't imagine that that's going to be where my night hinges.
And another part of this too is my best guess is that Edwards ends up playing today. He does not like to miss games. And we see with Edwards all the time, questionable on the injury report, ends up playing. Has some like terrible fall in the first half of a game, limps to the locker room. You go like, oh my God, how long is Anthony Edwards going to be out for? And then the answer ends up being like 2.5 minutes because he comes right back out on the court. So if you're asking me to build my lineups right now under the assumption that Edwards is in or out, I'm going to tell you I think he's more likely to play than sit. So that is also a little bit of my mindset when I'm not aggressively ROI boosting some of the late players. Let's get into some of these super chats as well as questions that are coming into us from the Discord channel. If you guys are a Stochastic member, you do get access to our Discord channel as well as, of course, access to stuff like our player projections, ownership projections, our Sims tool. If you guys are a Sims subscriber, and you could sign up for any of those packages using the link that we have below in the description box. But first, Ace of Spade wants to know who we are liking for DK tiers, Eric. Do you have lineups built out for tiers tonight?
Of course I do.
All right, so let's get into it. And tiers, of course, I accidentally closed the tab when I tried to change it.
Well, then you want me to just list off my lineups? Okay.
I've got it back up now. Got it back up.
SGA, tier 1, just barely.
All right. Tier 1, we've got a handful of guys that we can look at here, like SGA, Anthony Edwards, Domantas Sabonis. It is very close between the three of them. I agree with you. You said SGA. I'm going to echo those sentiments. But if you're playing multiple lineups, I'm going to go like all in on SGA. I would sprinkle in Anthony Davis and Sabonis there. It's very close between those three. The one who lags behind is Kevin Durant with all the Suns players active for tonight. Tier 2, what are you looking at in the second tier?
Jason Tatum.
Same. Tatum really should be in tier 1, and it should be Durant in tier 2, in my opinion. That would make things a little bit more interesting. But Jason Tatum in tier 2, tier 3, super easy one. Bam. Yeah. By the way, De'Aaron Fox, what is wrong with De'Aaron Fox? He has been
a lot. I have some numbers. I dug into that for a long time last night. What?
I said not numbers. Show what numbers?
No. The bad numbers. Like what are we doing this year, De'Aaron Fox? And here's the thing. Rinpack and I partied with one De'Aaron Fox on the yacht with FanDuel, the live final. It was lovely times. He's a lovely human being. I cheer for him. He is just like one of the easier dudes to cheer for on planet Earth. And yet he fucking sucks right now. He is terrible. The effective field goal percentage, sub 50% for a point guard here. Effective field goal percentage at 53.6%. He can't shoot threes. Like, he's never been able to shoot threes his entire career. He's actually had an above average 3-point percentage, but like his go-to has always been just finishing at the rim. Ridiculous stuff. Last season, 74.9% of the time he was finishing at the rim. That was 95th percentile in the NBA. That's like a center type number. This season, he's down to 61.5%. He's below average in the thing that made him special to begin with. That's like when a golfer starts to get the yips and they're like, oh, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to go into, they start making compensated swings and all of a sudden two-way misses show up. That's basically what De'Aaron Fox has going on offense right now. And that's not great for a guy with a 30% usage rate who continues to chuck no matter what.
Two-way misses. That was Tiger Woods' problem at one point as well. Here's what I think is a big issue. Here's what I think is a big issue with De'Aaron Fox. He had an unsustainably hot start to the season shooting threes, and he is historically not a great three-point shooter. Even last year, big breakout season for De'Aaron Fox. He was terrific. Shot 32.4% from three. Overall for his career, 33.1% three-point shooter. And overall for the year, he is still shooting 37.6% from three. The thing that concerns me, though, is a massive uptick in three-point attempts this year. Where last year he attempted 5 per game, this year he's at nearly 8. So he's shooting 50% more threes. And while earlier in the season when he was knocking down a bunch from, this was all well and good. The problem has been now that he's regressed to being just his normal self shooting threes, he hasn't changed his shot selection. I really think shot selection is the biggest issue here. And he's also dealing with a shoulder issue. So I think that kind of compounds it, but he's a guy who's not a great perimeter shooter that because he started out the year shooting well from three, he kind of is just like, all right, I'm a 3-point shooter now.
Correct. And what I'm saying is that like the thing that always made him special, because it was never 3-point shooting. It was always the ability he had to finish at the rim. You watch him play. He was the best point guard finishing at the rim in the entire NBA last season. This year, he's below average, and we're going to still keep his 38% three-point shooting, which has actually improved this season out on the floor. It's a huge problem for Sacramento with its current construction because Sabonis isn't going to stretch the floor. And if Fox can't stretch the floor, you are relying heavily on Kevin Huerter, on Keegan Murray, on these guys to be your main shooters, to be your guys who are putting up a majority of the shots. And that's just not a successful, sustainable way to win in the NBA if you can't have your main ball handlers be those shooters.
So anyway, De'Aaron Fox, I do not like him in tier.
I think we just got. I don't know how De'Aaron Fox caught a stray today, but boy did he! That was not intentional.
It was really just because I was looking at the options in tier 3, and I was like, well, Bam Adebayo is pretty easy, and then De'Aaron Fox. The funny thing is that I don't think De'Aaron Fox is a bad contrarian play in large field tournaments at what his price point is. So I like him for large field GPPs tiers. Though
he's 8K. He's 8K now. He's been that bad. This is a guy you were paying $9,500 for on nearly 10K during the playoffs last season when he was going back and forth with Steph. It was wild stuff.
The thing that's funny about DFS is we were just railing on De'Aaron Fox for the last like 3-4 minutes. Yeah. And then I go ahead and look at my exposures like, well, he's projected for 14% ownership and I have him like 25% of my lineups because he's been so poor as of late that his price has gone down and people have stopped playing him. And it's just kind of gotten to the break-even point where I do like getting to him. But tier 4, there's going to be Cade Cunningham for myself. How about you, Eric?
Same.
Tier 5, what are you looking at there?
I'm not looking at anything right now. Let me pull it up. Tier 5, I have Rudy Gobert.
I'm going to go with Jalen Duren, your guy, in tier 5 here.
I love Jalen Duren.
if Edwards does end up being out, you could play Gobert instead of Duran there, and I would feel pretty good about that. Tier 6, super easy one, probably the easiest one of the whole group. Tyler Hero
by a mile.
All right, so there's the tiers. Thank you very much for the super chat, Ace of Spade. Let's go ahead and look at the next question that we have here. We have the next one coming to us from Olrat14. He wants to know, how do we feel about Troy Brown? Is he better than Jonathan Isaac?
Oh, no. Dear, no. Just saying. So Jordan Klein and I went to the Clippers game together on what was it, Saturday? Jordan Klein, how many times did he hit the side of the backboard with a corner three?
It couldn't have been that many because they don't let him shoot very often. Yeah, 3. I was going to say, couldn't
he hit the corner of the backboard. He airballed actually one of them. So it's technically 2 that hit the side of the backboard without hitting the rim. And then an airball. It wasn't good.
Yeah, I mean, 19 minutes for him last game. It's hard to expect him to play big minutes. If you have him just in a lineup as a punt, okay. I know that Jonathan Isaac is going to be popular. I would rather play Jonathan Isaac than Troy Brown, though.
I would much rather play Jonathan Isaac. And if I were going to play any wing on Detroit, it would be Simone Fontecchio, Fontecchio, if you will, from Once Upon a Time.
And just because it's part of the question, we do have Jonathan Isaac as being a popular play tonight. Given his price point, I really don't mind it. He got up to 25 minutes last game. Isaac has been really good when he's been on the court this year. Legitimately, one of the best defensive players in the NBA this season.
Yep.
The problem is just he doesn't play enough minutes for it to really appear that way based on some of the numbers. But, I mean, Jonathan Isaac, we're talking about a guy in the limited minutes he's playing, like just taking last game as an example. I mean, he played 25 minutes, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, a steal. He's putting up, the only player who per minute is putting up more insane defensive stats this year than Jonathan Isaac is Wemby. And Wemby's just on like a whole
and SGA too. SGA is out of control defensively.
Yeah, but not the numbers. Because Isaac, all right, so what is Isaac?
He has a 7.6% block rate, 2.4% steal rate, 98th and 91st percentile respectively, 99th percentile defender. There's no doubt that he is absolutely 100% that dude. But then you go over to like an SGA too. Again, these are kind of tick for tat things because they're just both insane. But his steal, he's got a 3% steal rate right now, 96th percentile. It's kind of leveled out, 2.4% block rate, but that's still 70th percentile, and defensively 97th percentile player. So, I mean, obviously, Jonathan Isaac has more of the blocks covered, and then you've got more of the length there. But SGA, my God. But he would have my vote for MVP right now, for what it's worth.
I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. Going forward, I do think some of the numbers are going to dip off for SGA. But yeah, for now, I wouldn't have any issue with somebody saying they think SGA should be the MVP as of this moment. But talking about Jonathan Isaac, I think he's a good punt play. He's going to be popular, but he's so cheap and his minutes do appear to be trending upwards. I like the Jonathan Isaac chalk. Is it a piece of chalk that you like?
I don't know if I love it. And I mean, he's really popular. For me, this is probably where you look at Kyle Anderson, and it's like, all right, if I have them within 3 of each other and I add 4 minutes to the portfolio, who would I rather want? I think Jonathan Isaac, just being as popular as he's looking across the entire industry right now, I'm more inclined to say I'd want Kyle Anderson. But again, you're taking the risk of him not getting that bump and Anthony Edwards playing. So it is what it is. It's like the game theory aspect of it, where it's like, is 10% Kyle Anderson coming off the bench better than Jonathan Isaac at 30% coming, off the bench? It's like, for me, I think it's pretty equal.
Let's see what else we have coming in here from Super Chats. We got Xiaolin Verse saying, for FanDuel GPP, what's the best replacement from some of the MPE studs on the slate and a low-owned stud at small forward? Thanks, pimps. All right, Xiaolin Verse. I like this question here. Lots of elements to it. He called us pimps, which I really like. I think
love that.
We should really start referring to each other as pimps going forward. Just my opinion. But all right, best replacement from some of the MPE studs on the slate. All right, so let's see who it is that he's potentially referring to. All right, MPE studs. So I assume by studs he means the pay-up options, not just the really popular MPE guys. So. But none of the pay-up options are all that popular on FanDuel today. We don't have a single player priced above 10K that is more than 60. The most popular player on FanDuel who's over 10K is Jason Tatum at 16%. That's not crazy ownership. To me, I look at the ownership right now on FanDuel. I think it's very spread out. Is that how you see it as well? Because I don't look at like anybody being crazy popular on the high end.
No, I don't either. I mean, you can kind of, I mean, it just depends how many lineups you're going to be playing. It depends on what else you're prioritizing and what position. And Giannis has strict positionality there. SGA always has strict positionality if it's DK or FanDuel. Anthony Davis, MPE, a lot of these expensive guys with MPE outside of Giannis. So, like, I don't think you have to think about it too much.
There isn't a single player priced above 8K that has a projection of 20% ownership on FanDuel.
That's pretty incredible.
So, yeah. So for Jalen versus question, I don't really know how to give you a replacement for, he says, what's the best placement? Did you mean replacement or placement? Let's answer it this way. Who's your favorite pay up option on FanDuel? Let's just approach it from that standpoint.
Bam Adebayo.
I'm going to go with Jason Tatum. For one, because I came across like an absolute douche by calling him accidentally Jonathan a second ago. Because we were talking about Isaac. There was the J Tatum, and it just kind of came out wrong. And
no, look, this groundhog really has free real estate in your head today.
It fucked up my entire day. I might not get over it.
I see that. You've dropped like 4 F-bombs on a family show today. Can you fucking quit it?
Watch your mouth. No, I can't. I'm really tilted over the snow outside today.
I noticed.
It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So, all right. So favorite pay up option. Yeah, I'm going to go with Jason Tatum. And then he wants to know a low owned stud. All right. So if you had to pick a pay up option that is single digit ownership on FanDuel, which direction would you go? That would be Giannis for me. Giannis project for 90% ownership. Yeah. I like getting overweight to that mark.
Yeah, Giannis, and also got to play more limited minutes yesterday because of a blowout against Denver. That was kind of unexpected.
And then he wants to know a low-owned small forward to get to. All right.
Low-owned small forward.
Let's see. What
That's for FanDuel still, right?
Yeah, for FanDuel. Honestly,
let's just go sub 10%.
It's hard to find guys to like. I'm gonna do one. You can do it however you want. I'm gonna go. Jaime Jaquez is somehow only projected for 17% ownership on FanDuel. Yeah, I want to be more than 17% on Jaime Jaquez Jr. That is too low for a guy who I think should be chalk.
There you go. That's mine.
All right. Let's see what we have next. Thank you for the super chat, Jalen Verse. And actually, you know what? Let's put a pause on the questions. Play the damn animation, Jordan. It's time for the nuke of the night. I want to catch Jarek off guard. Do it. Play the animation.
Blow up my deck.
Yes. I'm going to take out Phil, by the way. Just going to drop this nuke right on his golf course and just obliterate him from existence. Eric, nuke of the night. What do you got for us today?
It's terrifying. This is probably the most terrifying nuke of the night that I've had in a long time. There's a part of it that feels chasey, but there's no chase to a guy who's sub 5% owned right now. I'm going to be playing a lot of Dennis Schroeder tonight. He is $4,800 over on DraftKings in the first game of the night going up against Boston. Obviously, new situation, new circumstances, and there's this little wrinkle down effect that I don't think is really being expressed where Day'Ron Sharpe, his existence, it's not that I expect, anything crazy to happen there, but like, they've been going to like a Dorian Finney-Smith, or they did have Royce O'Neal playing those backup center minutes once upon a time. But I do think that this is going to be close to a 22-26 type split. We just got the news that Simmons is going to be starting. I've Dennis Schroeder in for 26 minutes right now. So pretty much exactly what we have at the site. But this might be a new circumstance that takes us a little bit of getting used to. And we saw this at the early tenure of his Toronto days here too. Dennis Schroeder, when he's out there creating and he's the main facilitator, this guy can be really functional from a fantasy perspective. He's a 0.95 guy. So again, at 26 minutes, that isn't really necessarily what's going to get it done. But 17 potential assists last game, maybe a little bit of an outlier, but he's surrounded by some guys who like to chuck. Cameron Thomas, Mikal Bridges won't be shy by any means. You have Dennis Smith Jr. off the bench, who, again, 18% usage, nothing to go out of your way to scoff at. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity that Dennis Schroeder has with the ball in his hands here that he didn't necessarily get the leash for when he was in Toronto because of Scotty Barnes, a true ball handler type. Like, I think Mikal Bridges is more than fine playing off the ball as a like main number one or quote unquote number one here in Brooklyn. So at sub 5% ownership, sub 5K. You want to get different away from some of these mid 4K major chalk pieces from Miami. Get a little different. Incorporate Dennis Schroeder, who eventually maybe even might share a couple of minutes with Ben Simmons, which could elevate him to like 30 minutes if he really gets it going off the bench.
You have said ball handler probably 15 times over the course of the show. The reason I know that is because I'm a child who laughs a little bit inside every time I hear you say ball handler. But I have a ball handler for you that I like for tonight's slate. And that's going to be Jaden Ivey, who is playing just a massive amount of minutes as of late. And one thing that, to take that term from you, ball handler, that's made a big difference from him. I think it was about 3 weeks ago. There was a players only meeting in Detroit where they went up to Monty Williams, the coach, and they said to him, we should play Jaden Ivey at point guard, just based on what they were seeing from him in practice. And Monty considers to be some sort of revolutionary thing that he'd never considered before. And Jaden Ivey played a bunch of point guard minutes that night. He had a big game. And Williams went to the media after the game and said, the reason we played him at point guard is because the players asked me to. Ever since then, we've seen Jaden Ivey have the ball in his hands more. His usage has seen an uptick. His playing time has also seen an uptick. He's not crazy popular today. We got him projected for 18% ownership, but most importantly, he also gives us a little bit of flexibility because of the start time of the game. If Anthony Edwards ends up being ruled out, if you're overweight to Jaden Ivey, one of the players I gave a positive ROI boost to in the Sims, it's going to be easier to manipulate your lineups and get yourself more exposure to the Timberwolves players in the event that Edwards should be out. But even as is, I really do like Jaden Ivey. Look at his playing time in the last few games, 36, 48, 38, 35, 34 minutes. And his usage rate in those games are 27.5, 24.5, 37, 21, 29% usage. So playing time is up for Jaden Ivey. The usage is up. And then also, obviously, they made some trades at the deadline, getting rid of Bogdanovich, getting rid of Alec Burks, which is only going to open up more solidified playing time and opportunity for him going forward. Jaden Ivey is my nuke of the night.
I'm so very here for it. I liked what I saw from Detroit the other night. I think that was definitely inspiring stuff. I think, having guys that are lower usage than what a Bojan would have been out there. I mean, you're talking Mike Muscala for a couple minutes, 14.4% usage. Marcus Sasser, he's the highest coming off the bench now, 19.1% usage. So that's still nothing crazy. Like Mr. Jaden Ivey should be getting a lot of opportunity. I think him, Duran, and Cunningham, I think just kind of rotating them around in tournament lineups, really good strategy tonight. And I'm not scoffing on Asar Thompson or Fontecchio here either, both guys that I'm mixing in a little bit.
All right, let's see what else we have as far as questions go. We've got one here from Jamal Parker saying contrarian, balanced, or chalky lineups today. He also says Greg only. He says JK, but I'm not going to read that part out loud. So Jamal Parker, contrarian, balanced, or chalky.
Why would you do that?
I think this is a good night for the lineup generator to build contrarian lineups because you're just going to get yourself to an absurd amount of Heat players if you don't. So I think you should be going with the contrarian lineups. And if anybody else wants to sign up for the lineup generator, use the link that we have below in the description box. That's somebody tweeted me the other day, Noah Levinson. Noah, who tweets at us on Twitter when he has wins. He watches a lot of our shows. Using just the lineup generator, he's won 5 GPPs over the course of the last 2 months to sign up for the lineup generator. So yeah, guys, take advantage of that package. Sign up using the link we have below. It's going to build lineups for you. You get access to the Discord channel. We've got our player projections and ownership projections of the lineup generator. It is definitely something that I recommend, particularly if you're a newer DFS player and just need help building out your lineups. TO Deck 20 wants to know, who do we ROI boost with the Edwards status? Yeah, so here are the players I gave ROI boost to. And nothing too crazy. Like there was no player who went in and gave like a 50 or 60% ROI boost to, but I gave ROI boost to Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Keegan Murray, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, De'Aaron Fox, Nasri. Those 7 players, I gave 5 to 10% ROI boost just to get my lineups a little bit more backloaded. I think that's the best way to approach the Edwards situation. Find some guys from the later games that you like and just make yourself get a little bit more exposure to them. Give yourself a little bit more flexibility. Tiptoeiness is asking for our favorite 2 players per position on FanDuel. Eric, do you have FanDuel lineups built out? If not, I could just read off my 2 most roster players each position.
I was feeling overzealous. I'm playing both sites today. So yeah.
All right. Point guard for me, that is Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley. Mike Conley looks really, really good on FanDuel, especially if Edwards is being ruled out. So for FanDuel purposes, that's somebody you can give an ROI boost to. Ivey and Conley for me at point guard. What do you have?
I have Conley and Suggs at the moment.
Okay. Shooting guard, that is going to be Tyler Hero and Jaylen Brown for me.
Yeah, so Suggs again goes in there. And then, yeah, Duncan Robinson just playing tons of.
Small forward, that is Jay Crowder and Caleb Martin for me.
It is Caleb Martin, Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, completely different play on FanDuel for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'm going to change this up a little bit, actually, because these guys both have power forward eligibility. So I'm actually going to go Duncan Robinson and Jaime Jaquez Jr. at small forward. So I could go Jay Crowder and Caleb Martin at power forward. But what do you have at power forward?
I have Jaden McDaniels. So, yeah, Minnesota guy leaking in there as well, and Caleb Martin.
And then center, that is going to be Bam for me.
It is Bam.
Cheers, Brew. Cheers, Brew wants to know DK cash locks, and then what do we do about the first games on the slate? Yeah, you have to play Miami. Never mind, because if we're not going to consider the Miami-Milwaukee game, if we're just looking at Boston, Brooklyn, as well as OKC, Orlando, there's nothing you have to play in cash from Boston, Brooklyn, or OKC, Orlando.
Nope, that is 100% true.
As for players, I think you should absolutely be playing in cash games on DraftKings. Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Jonathan Isaac. We could talk about his ownership in large field tournaments. For cash games, just play Jonathan Isaac for the cheap price point. Actually, I just realized that I said that there's nobody you have to play in the early games. I would actually play Jonathan Isaac in cash games, though.
I'd probably play Al Horford, too.
And for cash. Bio. Honestly, play a shit ton of Heat players in cash games today.
You're not playing a lot of the late games, which is ironic because they have two of the highest totals that are sitting there. But like in tournaments, I think you're kind of flip-flopping. You're trying to find more Conley, more Nam, more Kyle Anderson, more of those kind of guys to mix in for tournaments. But like you're not contemplating any of them for cash today. So play the good plays in the early games.
Phil Senzig, who puts it in the basket? Lotion play of the night.
Put the ball in the basket. Now you've got me all Jaden Ivey hard. I mean, that is just like, that's a whole thing.
Excuse me?
Who's somebody different? This one is. How about we just go SGA? He's going to score a lot of points tonight.
Tyler Hero for me. And I do have a bet on.
Yeah,
Tyler
you took
Hero.
His under today.
Because it's 25.5 points, which is which is a very high total. But the other thing is Tyler Hero could go out. He could score 25 points with 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and have a great game for his price point in DFS. But it goes to show how cheap he is relatively in DFS when I was able to bet his point total of 25.5 on the under this morning. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely paths for him to have a big fantasy game and score less than 26 points tonight.
That is
Let's
correct.
see. Chris Williams question, playing my usual DK showdown. My gut thinks D'Lo has a big game, but does Spencer Dinwiddie cut into his minutes or Reeves? Honestly, neither in my opinion. He's just going to be a guy at the end of the bench. I don't think that all of a sudden this means that D'Lo or Austin Reeves significantly loses playing time. Dinwiddie's been awful this year.
Yes, he has.
Is he somebody, do you think he's going to significantly impact the playing time for Russell or Reeves?
So he has the lowest field goal percentage of any player in the NBA who's qualified, which is hilarious to think about. I have him in for 22 minutes, but like, I think what happens is that like, he just plays the role that Max Christie would have been playing had he been active for this game. You got Cam Reddish, who's hurt too. Gabe Vincent's hurt. Like, I think Dinwiddie's just playing that role. So like 22 minutes, then you get still 34, 35 for D'Angelo and Austin Reeves. Doesn't really change a lot of what I'm doing there.
All right. Lots of questions. So let's try to speed it up a little bit. Yep. Jorge wants to know top 20 must-haves for DK 20 max. And he also says that we're 200 likes away from 1K. Let's do it. Yeah, guys, almost closing in on 1,000 likes here for the show.
Seems good.
Top must-haves for 20 max. Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Duncan Robinson, Jaden Ivey's another one for me.
Yep.
Anything you would add?
Nope. You said all of the guys. You said all of them.
Brad Kaufman, can I trust Isaac in a single entry? The Sims love him. Yeah, he's somebody who, as far as punt options go, there is nobody sub 4K that I like more than Jonathan Isaac tonight. And the Sims are not that like you run data through the Sims and it's going to give you 100% of Jonathan Isaac, but shows up in a good amount of lineups. I don't have an issue with that. Jonathan Isaac is a punt play that I like getting to, especially because, like I said, I'm expecting Anthony Edwards to play. So there's not like some influx of value I'm anticipating later on this slate. So yeah, I like Jonathan Isaac. Would you be willing to play him in a single entry lineup, Eric?
Yes, I would. That being said, he's not in my single entry right now.
Thomas Ryan, DK favorite players at each position. For me at point guard, that is Tyler Hero tonight, Eric, yourself.
It is Tyler Hero.
Shooting guard, that is going to be Duncan Robinson for me. Oh, this is going to be so many players. People are going to be
it's going to be a lot of, so Jaime Jaquez, Martin, bam. Congratulations. We're done.
Yeah. Jaime Jaquez, Bam, somebody else who, and I mean, we got Jonathan Isaac there as well. But if you're looking for somebody who's a pay up option that I do also have as one of my most rostered players here over on DraftKings, Jason Tatum, also going to be fairly popular. Let's see. Naz Reid, I don't think is a bad contrarian option. I like him as is. And then he's somebody who could play more in the event that Edwards, if he was to be ruled out. But I like Naz Reid either way. So Naz Reid, somebody I'm overweight to at power forward, just to give you a bit of a contrarian guy that I'm overweight to. Jacob Dunn. Boy, this is a random comparison. Better play tonight. Detroit plus 10 or Kevin Durant over 26.5 points.
You could have got Detroit plus 12 last night, but just throwing it out there.
Not the question.
Detroit.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Detroit plus 10. Honestly, I don't hate either of them. Don't hate either of them, Jacob.
Same.
Let's go into the Discord now. And guys, don't forget, if you sign up for a Stochastic package, you do get access to the Discord channel. The show might be ending in 13 minutes. I'm going to be hanging out in Discord for the next couple of hours, waiting for all the news to come out for the later games tonight. So keep that in mind. If you guys do have a Stochastic membership, hang out in Discord to find out who it is that I like after lock, if anything changes. First question is from Kenny Wayne 256. Who's the exotic play of the night, Eric?
There's no such thing as an exotic play. I refuse to answer.
All right. Tyler Hero, maybe the easiest exotic play of the entire season. Eric refuses to answer.
It's just, I can't believe we're still doing that.
I can't believe we don't get asked more questions about it. So we clearly feel differently about this particular bit.
I really don't.
Kenny
like
Wayne,
you.
Thank you for the
yesterday
question.
was
Best
so
one of the
fun
night so far. Kenny
It
Wayne.
was so enjoyable
Love
not
you.
doing
Keep
a
it
show
up.
with you yesterday. Anyway, go ahead.
Warren wants to know how many Heat players are you playing per lineup? And yeah, I don't mind 4 players from the Heat in one lineup, but like if you're hand building lineups, I wouldn't play 5 or 6 from the Heat. How about yourself?
Go. That sounds about right. I'm 4, kind of the most I want to be getting to.
Miami High Life wants to know who I am boosting for ROI in the Sims. Yep. I will pull this back up to tell you guys who it is that I gave boosts to. And I know I answered this before, but still, once again, I am, where's the boost? Here we go. All right. So I gave boosts to Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Keegan Murray, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, De'Aaron Fox, Naz Reid. Just the guys that are playing in the later games that I already like as is. Also a spread of different price points, so it'll make it easier to maneuver my lineups should there be an event where Anthony Edwards ends up not playing. Got a super chat.
Event. You made that sound like an earthquake in Portland.
This is more serious to me than anything else. This is my DFS lineups, Eric. This is very important stuff.
Okay, there you go.
Malcolm Revamp, Eric and Greg, what is our favorite player prop on FanDuel? Let me pull up Odd Shopper here.
Yeah, find that out for you here.
What's showing out? You want to find a prop you like on FanDuel? I answer some of the questions.
Perfect. I will do that right now.
You can delegate duties here. Master
Al
PJ,
Horford under 1.5 threes done.
Okay. Well, that was
best,
quick.
Best play.
Much quicker than I was expecting.
Al Horford under 1.5 threes.
Under 1.5 threes from Eric Lindquist. And also, don't forget, if you guys want to sign up for Odd Shopper, get more of the bets and information that Eric and I give out, as well as the betting model that we have, market-based betting model at Odd Shopper, sign up using the link below, and you can use the promo code Lindy to get yourself 20% off. Odd Shopper has been killing it, by the way. I showed my results on my short that I do every day with my free bet of the day. It's been crazy. I've got an insane ROI for the last few weeks. Killing it over at Odd Shopper.
Oh my God, Greg, you're so big.
Let's see what else we have here. We've got Master. I don't know exactly what you just said, but I heard it a certain way, and I don't know if you meant it to come out that way.
It was 100% how it was meant.
All right,
I thought you would enjoy it, but
yeah,
I guess you've never heard it before.
No, I haven't. That was why it was a good little ego boost. It honestly makes me forget about that whole Punxsutawney Phil nonsense. I'm like, fuck yeah. It doesn't even, there's certain things. It doesn't even matter that you know that there's no truth baked into it, that it's not based in reality. It still makes you feel good every once in a while. Master PJ wants to know who from Miami will stay on the floor in a blowout. It's just going to be end of the bench. Nobody who you're considering playing right now is going to be on the court in a blowout. Also, the spread's only 8 points. This is not a particularly great Milwaukee team. They've been terrible. They've honestly been one of the worst teams in the NBA since Glenn Rivers took over. Good riddance. And not saying that's going to keep up going forward, but the spread is 8 points in the game. I'm not just writing it off as a blowout.
Correct.
VA Prince, He is responding to the rant earlier from Punxsutawney Phil saying, "God damn it, Ehrenberg, Greg. Tell him how you really feel." I meant every single word that I said earlier.
Yeah,
Captain
he's
Akella
a crazy person.
wants to know who is our favorite player for single entry. I'm going to say Jaden Ivey.
I like the Jaden Ivey call. I'm toying with my single entry lineup right now, finishing up exactly what I want to do. I just got all my lineups in like early, so props to me. I won't have any panic. I got like this 2v2 that's just bugging me, and I think I'm going to go to your side where I just have some later flexibility. Just getting a little Bikram yoga stretch. Just having that flexibility is a good thing.
Let's see, what else do we have coming? Oh, Brandon Mauler in the chat says $6,400 for utility. Who do we like? All right, 6,400 utility. Okay. All right, let's give him a couple of options here because there's a lot of chalk on the slate.
Yeah,
so
Derek White is somebody we haven't talked about that I think is kind of intriguing. If you're just going 1v1 swap out, Derek White's interesting to me. 6,300.
Yeah, I'd rather play Derek White than Drew Holiday, and those are the two guys that I think are the most reasonable around that price point. So Derek White, I think is the way to go there, Brandon. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see what we have here. IC50, Isaac or Trey Lyles. I have quite a bit more Jonathan Isaac than Trey Lyles.
Same.
We've got.
I've been the Trey Lyles guy lately, for what it's worth. I'm not playing Trey Lyles today.
Eric M is asking us, who is our favorite super low owned single entry play for DK? It's not that often in single entry I'm playing somebody who's like a 1 or 2% owned player. It's kind of unnecessary.
Depends what price point you're playing. Like I've played a lot of guys that are like 1% because I'm like, okay, the field is obviously way off on this. It happens more, I think, in single entry than it does in large field lately.
I think I have one. I have one for you. It's not, I don't know what he means by super low owned. But if you wanted to play for a weird Heat game script where you're not just jamming all the Heat chalk, go Haywood Highsmith.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Nikola Jovic. I have a little Jovic at 3K flat. Good talk. Glad we had it.
3,200. It's same idea though, right? If you're playing for a game that maybe the starters don't play all that well, potentially it's a blowout. You don't just want to load up on all the Heat chalk. I think you could get to Haywood Highsmith, who I really don't like as a fantasy player, but I'm a little bit overweight to him in large field tournaments. So I'll give that as an answer. Gang Green says, Pimps of DFS. Oh, this is funny. He just asked us our thoughts on Derek White as the last minute. Is he playing the same lineup as Brandon Mauler, where they just have the exact same amount of salary left over there? I'm overweight to Derek White. I think that he is somebody who we should be getting to. I don't want to give too much more analysis on it because we've got a bunch of questions here, and I want to make sure we get to all of them. But yeah, I do like Derek White there.
Greg's favorite exotic play of the night.
No, Tyler Hero.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Derek White was my one from and he crushed that day.
He did crush that day. That was from the top rope, Greg.
That was a good exotic play that night. Clyde says Crowder's 2% owned. Why are you getting so much of him? Who's getting a lot of Jay Crowder?
I don't know. Why does the moon's know to set in the sky?
Are you getting a lot of? I'm not getting a lot of Jay Crowder. Are you?
I have no Jay Crowder on DK. On FanDuel, he's crazy popular and should be.
So that's where he may have gotten some wires crossed. Yeah,
got it.
Jay Crowder is $4,600 on FanDuel and has small forward and power forward eligibility, and those positions are not all that easy to fill. So FanDuel, I get to a bunch of them. I don't really get to him at all on DraftKings though, Clyde. So totally different. It's site specific for Jay Crowder there, just because of price and position on FanDuel. Champino, favorite chalk and low owned play on DK for each position. I think pretty much all the Heat guys are good chalk. Right? There's no, if you told me that you had somebody from the Heat in your lineup, assuming it's not like Terry Rozier or Jimmy Butler, I'm probably okay with him being in your lineup. But as far as our favorite low-owned players, I think this is an interesting way to do it. Eric, favorite sub 20% owned player at each position. I think that's a fair way to look at lower.
We can do it. Yep.
Point guard for me, that is going to be Jaden Ivey.
Mike Conley.
Shooting guard, I'm going to go Jalen Suggs.
So Jalen Suggs not on DK though, on FanDuel for me. I'm going to go Jaylen Brown.
Small forward, I am going to go with, I guess I'll go with LeBron James here. I'm a little bit overweight to LeBron. We've got him just over 10% ownership. I have him in 13%. But I'm playing a lot of the chalk at small forward. Like I have a lot of Jaime Jaquez, Duncan Robinson, Tatum. So LeBron a little bit overweight too at a lower ownership.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown, it seems, would be mainly because of small forward looking through my lineup. So yeah, small forward for him too.
Power forward, Keegan Murray.
It is Naz Reid for me.
And then center, that is going to be Jalen Duren for me.
It is going to be, who's my first center that is sub 20%? Jalen Duren. Yep.
All right. Now let's do some rapid fire here. Our logs. Do we like Duren for FanDuel GPP? Yes.
Sure do.
Duren in tournaments. And then we've got one from King Yusuf who wants to know which top 2 pay up options do you like the most tonight? Let's see. Top 2 pay up options that I like the most today. Are we going to consider Bam a pay up option? If we do, it's Bam is one of them.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Bam. Yep. Fair.
All right. So I'm going to say Bam and Tatum. They're both fairly popular though. If I'm going to be looking contrarian, then I'll go back and say LeBron James. Do you have a contrarian pay up option you're liking for the slate?
Karl Anthony Towns.
Next question here is from Tim Lee. By the way, I do like the Karl Anthony Towns shout out quite a bit because obviously if Anthony Edwards is out, you're going to want to jam in Cat today. We've got a question here from Tim Lee. He wants to know, are we okay fading the first 2 games for single entry?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have an issue with that. Like my favorite guy from the first couple of games is Jonathan Isaac, but you don't have to play him in single entry. So not an issue for me if you don't want to play the first couple of games. Then we've got a super chat here. This one is from Samson. Thoughts on Bridges? So we've got Mikal Bridges on the slate, but we do not have Mikal Bridges in my lineup. Season 1 out of 150 for me.
Yeah, I have him in 2.
And if you go ahead and look at Mikal Bridges, one thing that has really hurt Bridges this year, the more that Cam Thomas plays, the lower the production is for Bridges.
Yep.
The reason being is that Cam Thomas is a massively high usage guy. And now that we've seen minutes all over the place for Cam Thomas, right? Starts the year, coming off the bench, limited minutes, shoots the ball really hot, ends up getting put into the starting lineup, plays bigger minutes, then hurts his ankle, kind of ends up taking a step back. Bridges shows out a little bit. Thomas comes back, returns to a bench role. Now he's back playing bigger minutes again. And that's really hurt Mikal Bridges. Last game, 18.8% usage rate. The game before, big usage game, 33.2. Before that, 26.3, 19.4, 21% usage, 28, 21%. So there are some games where he's knocking down his shots and the usage goes up. But there are too many games for Mikal Bridges where it's like 20 or sub 20% usage. And I really do attribute that to Cam Thomas playing extended minutes. So that's the reason why I don't really like Bridges tonight there, Samson. Anything else you have to add, Eric?
Nope. Perfect. Get one more in.
All right. And then Iron Maiden 2, Ivy and Monk, Arcade and Ozur Thompson. Ivy and Monk for me.
Ivy and Monk.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. How many did we finish with? We finished with 897. So didn't quite get to the 1,000 mark, but that's nothing to sneeze at. 897 likes. It's a good number, guys. Thank you very much for the support. We do appreciate it. If you're in our Discord channel, hang out the next couple of hours until we get into the later games locking. I'm be hanging out. So actually 3 hours of me in Discord. So we could sweat. We could talk about that absolute cuck punks of Tony Phil. Whatever it is you guys want to talk about in Discord, we'll be chopping it up in there. So guys, have a great night. Good luck. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out.